Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the AI for India Summit 2025, co-hosted by AI for India and the Center for Study of Science, Technology and Policy, CSTEP. On behalf of CSTEP, I, Shayanthani, am delighted to have you join us here today at the Infosys Science Foundation in Bengaluru for a day dedicated to ideation, collaboration, and innovation. AI for India is a public interest initiative working to shape India's AI ecosystem through open innovation, ethical research, and collaborative capacity building. CSTEP, one of India's leading think tanks, brings science and technology-driven approaches to addressing critical developmental challenges, supporting evidence-based policy making at both national and state levels. Our theme for today, Making Impact in India and Beyond, brings together thought leaders, practitioners, and innovators to explore how AI can create meaningful change across sectors. To formally open today's proceedings, I'd like to invite Dr. Jain Asundi, Executive Director of the Center for Study of Science, Technology and Policy, to deliver the welcome address. Dr. Asundi has been instrumental in steering CSTEP's vision of applying science and technology to solve some of India's most pressing policy challenges. May I please request Dr. Asundi to take the stage?
Thank you, Shayanthani. Welcome, one and all. It's my great honor and pleasure to invite you to the AI for India Summit 2025. And the topic for today is making impact in India and beyond. The idea also is, of course, to move from conversations to implementation. I thought I will spend a minute maybe to just reflect on the notion of AI and the terms that we have been hearing over the past couple of years, but maybe for some of us, it's over the past couple of decades. The first time I heard the concept of artificial neural networks was sometime in my first year of engineering, back in 1991, when a senior in electrical engineering was working on that. And I asked him, wow, this sounds really exciting. And he told me, oh, this is nothing. It's just something that I have to do to finish my bachelor's project. Fast forward a decade later, when I was at Carnegie Mellon, of course, seen as the hotbed of artificial intelligence, I had a lot of conversations with people who were working in robotics and, artificial neural networks again. And all of them were talking about, natural language processing. And they said, it's really far away. But what struck me at that point was a very interesting presentation by Hewlett-Packard. I think many of us remember that company. Is that they made a presentation where they imagined the future, where they said that there is a earthquake in California and people are affected. People go up to a police person and the woman speaks to the police person in Spanish. The police person obviously does not understand. So he says, 1 minute, takes out his device, points it at the person speaks to that the police person, and it translates in real time what the person is speaking in Spanish to English. And in that moment, the entire audience, which was a bunch of computer science people, electrical engineers, people in the forefront of technology, just started laughing, right? And they were laughing because they saw how ridiculous that particular idea was in that moment. But 15 years later, it is a reality with all of us. We have it on our phones. We are doing it in real. So one of the things that it also tells me is that our ability to even imagine what's going to happen a decade from now is very poor. Even amongst people who are at the forefront of technology and not able to, are working on these things. So I think technology and some of these things have been moving at an incredibly fast pace. And what it really points to, as me now sitting at the Center for Study of Science, Technology and Policy, is that this innovation should serve people. It should be about how do we take this technology and make sure that it improves the lives of people so that people get a decent quality of life throughout. So with that, I think the hope of our summit today is that we learn from each other, figure out new ways in which things can be done. We connect with each other. This is something that I'm sure many of us, through the endless Zoom calls or internet calls, are not able to do. I think we should be able to connect with each other And I think in the words that our authors who are going to be talking about their book is, I think let's think about co-creating. Can we co-create some of the ideas and come up with new ideas? So with that, let me also give a little bit of a shout out to all the invitees who agreed to be here today and speak about not only their experiences but also what they are planning to do. Special invitation and special shout out to Professor Rishi Krishnan from IIM Bangalore, who I've been interacting over the past decade, and it's my honor to have him here. And also Shri Manoj Jain from BEL. Thank you, sir, for coming. And many others, Sunil, Prasad, Satish, BG, Mahesh, all of you who are coming here and offering your insights. Hopefully, this is the start of a conversations that we will have in order to co-create. Last but not the least, let me also say a very huge thanks to the Infosys Science Foundation for graciously allowing us to have this event here today, and Bhavna Mehra and her team for being incredible in hosts, and also being able to allow our team to work on this particular event. And I look forward to a great session today. So welcome all, and thank you.
Thank you, Jay, for that insightful speech and for setting the tone for today's summit. We now turn to a fundamental question at the heart of our gathering. What does it take to build a robust and inclusive AI ecosystem for India? To help us unpack this, we are honored to welcome Professor Rishikesh Krishnan, Director IIM Bangalore, in conversation with Mr. Shashi Shekhar Vempati, former CEO of Prasar Bharati and co-founder of AI4INDIA, who will moderate this opening dialogue.
Before we start our conversation, first of all, good morning to everyone, and thanks for being here. I just want to share that we are very honored to have Dr. A. Surya Prakash, former chairman Prasar Bharati, and most recently Padme Bhushan awardee by the President of India. I would request him to share a few words before he has to rush to his next engagement. But sir, please just share a few words and then we'll get started.
Ellarigu namaskara. Wonderful to be here in the midst of all these brilliant minds. It's a matter of chance that I happen to be here this morning. Shashi and Alok Agarwal happened to drop in at my residence yesterday evening, and they told me about this summit and said, why don't you drop in at 10 o'clock? Because I have a flight to catch. So I said, all right. So I'm here. And I'm here before you just to convey my very best wishes for the summit and to all of you. Thank you.
Professor Ganesh Ramakrishnan is from IIT Bombay, heading the Bharat Jain project, one of the leading contenders to build a sovereign AI foundation model in India. So let me begin the conversation with you, Ganesh. If you could just describe where are we in this journey? Where is India?
First of all, pleasure being here. Thanks for inviting me. We are at a very interesting juncture. Well, India could bring a paradigm shift in the way it builds AI by co-creation. I think that co-creation is a very important keyword, because in that process, the adoption becomes a lot more seamless. I've heard from CTOs, executive directors of banks, expressing their anguish with their own organizational adaptation of AI as against the adaptation of AI by all their employees, right? So there's a stark difference. We were actually at an ICSCI summit yesterday, and the same thing was being echoed. Everyone uses AI, but then at an organizational level, there has been a challenge. I think co-creation is the way. While we can boast that India is a use case capital, here's an opportunity for us to also leverage the fact that we are a use case capital to also become generators of technology in the process of co-creation. So that's one point, that we have an opportunity for paradigm shift. But otherwise, you can paint a very gloomy picture saying, we in terms of the research ecosystem in the country, we are not really up there in terms of AI. When I say research, I don't mean academia. I really mean the R&D investment from industries, right? And that's a constant cause of pain. And the fact that R&D investment for decades, and we have a legacy of not investing. I would still think this is an opportunity. The R&D has to step up, and it has to happen across the industry and academia. In academia, I must empathize with industry. The pain points they have in adaptation, not just of AI, but pretty much anything that is disruptive. So we need industries to step up, but we also need academia to step up, and this is an opportunity. Otherwise, you know the rest.
So, Professor Krishnan, if I could bring you in at this point. One of the trends that we're seeing is that AI has already entered the classroom well before any other kind of AI usage has happened. Students are heavily using it. How are you seeing AI within IIM Bangalore? What challenges are you looking at? What opportunities are you looking at?
Yeah, so something we realized quite early in the day is that we cannot fight AI for sure. So we have tried to welcome it as much as we can in the educational process. I think, but there are 2 or 3 aspects to this which are important. So I'll just give you a little bit of background of how management education happens. We use a lot of case studies in the classroom as part of the learning process. And the whole idea is not to find a particular specific solution, but it's the whole thought process and the discussion, if you want, a kind of Socratic learning process that we try to simulate in the classroom. Now, if that is the objective of the case method, then a student coming and saying this is the solution is not really the way of using that method in an effective way. So our challenge is that we want students to learn and to develop their own thinking abilities. At the same time, we also want students to be able to use the AI tools effectively, because when they go into the job market, employers are going to expect them to do that. In fact, this year itself, in our placement interviews, we found companies asking prospective candidates questions like, if you have to make a digital marketing plan for the company, how will you use AI tools to do it more effectively? What tool will you use? How will you go about it, etc.? So that's what's happening on the employer side. So what we are trying to figure out right now, to my mind, that's one of the big challenges, is how do we not sort of use AI without in any way impeding the development of thinking and analytical processes in the students, and at the same time make sure that they have enough awareness and enough familiarity with the tools so that when they go into the workplace or in the assignments and so on, they can use it. So to me, that's the number 1 challenge. Number 2 challenge is more to do with evaluation and assessment. Just to give you a simple example, last time I was teaching my course, I gave a project and all the answers looked beautiful. So I knew they've all come out of Gen AI engines. There are no mistakes, beautifully formatted, fully referenced, all the rest. So I knew this is not written by these guys. And of course, when I read it, it was confirmed that it was indeed unlikely to have been written by them. But the interesting part is that because of this, while they were so beautifully written, the number of answers which were really outstanding was actually very few. The average level was pretty good because it all came out of some nice Gen AI engine. But I didn't see any of those flights of creativity or out of the box thinking, which I might have seen in previous years. So in a way, this mirrors the first issue which I mentioned to you, which is we want students who will finally be able to use their brain, do the co-creation, right? We want the human being and the AI to work together. We don't just want some output of that Gen AI engine.
Let me take the conversation a little away from AI in the classroom. To a broader societal issue, right? One of the big thrusts of the national education policy, the government has been around Indian languages and bringing down barriers in terms of learning with Indian languages. So Ganesh, first you talk about what you're doing with Bharat Jain and how are you addressing this issue, and then I'll come
This topic very dear to my heart. History shows that countries that actually embraced and built on their own suite of languages have actually always made, in the long run, taken significant strides, not just in terms of metrics such as GDP, but also effectively in terms of the confidence level, right, with which you innovate. Innovation is very key here. Now, specifically with respect to Bharatjan, I have also a precedent of work we've been doing on high fidelity machine translation. So you just can't pass textbooks to be translated into Indian languages and be at the mercy of the translation engines. Why? Because translation is a lot beyond just rendering the translation. It is incorporating domain dictionaries and domain constraints. It is ensuring that the drudgery associated with bringing consistency into the translated text and faithfulness to the target language are also facilitated through an ecosystem, right? So human in the loop. But how do you make the human in the loop effective? By bringing in good memoization, right? So there was this project UDAN, which we have been running for several years, and we worked very closely with AICT and several government agencies to get tons of textbooks translated in Indian languages. So that gave us the confidence that actually it is possible to scale the process of translation by bringing human in the loop through thousands of translators. Initially, we tagged the entire process as it's a little funny thing. Basically, we used to call it machine-assisted human translation. But in comes Gen AI, and we have the term has flipped. It is basically human-assisted machine translation. But still, bringing the provenance is very important. The keyword there is provenance. Now, the same idea of provenance we have brought into Bharatjan. Where does it begin? The provenance begins at the level of tokenization. Right, the way you view sequence of tokens as subunits, or you could actually view them even as groups of words. Now, subunits pre-tokenization is well known in the entire LLM landscape, but unfortunately, Indian languages have received very less attention there. What we did is build very effective pre-tokenizers. Build vocabularies. There's a lot of human intelligence required to build vocabularies such that words are consistently split across Indian languages. So Indian languages do share a lot of vocabulary. That is something we leveraged in actually building our tokenizers at scale. But in comes DeepSeek, and DeepSeek also opens up the possibility of grouping words, right? You can actually have multi-token prediction. And that is also very useful for Indian languages, because if you look at Hindi versus Bengali, versus Sanskrit or Malayalam, and that the group of languages where the suffixes are attached to the root word, right? As against Hindi and Bengali, you'll find the suffixes separated from the root word. In comes multi-token prediction. You can actually view all of them canonically, and we have a very nice slide, right, where we show you do this word grouping, and all Indian languages actually look very similar, including Tamil, right, which I speak. So if Tamil gels it with the other Indian languages, I would say all languages should actually gel well, right? So both on the vocabulary, on the structure, leveraging that to make very effective models. And I must also point out that today's LLMs are flawed with a lot of inefficiency. So we brought out this open source platform called Decile, DECILE.org, because even pre-LLM, there has always been this belief that there's a lot of redundancy in the data that is being exploited, but how do we actually make sure that the drudgery associated with creating redundant annotation and having redundant computation is also cut down? So data efficient machine learning, compute efficient machine learning, bringing all that to effective fruition, even in the LLM landscape, is a big area. Again, we are very well poised at Bharatjan because we are doing this as a joint effort between the academia, 7 academic consortia members, and a Section 8 company, where we are able to hire the top talent in the country. I think models like this have to be built. And now, of course, the industry is going to be the most important component here for outreach, diffusion, and adaptation. And we'll maybe later talk about the industry partners who've been working with. But we really want to connect today with all of you. Rishi is here. Make sure that we actually build this for India, co-create technology become generators of technology, look at Indian languages through the lens of Indian languages and not necessarily through the lens of English, and actually become data efficient. I would just to add to this, the same holds for speech, right? If you look at the phonemes across Indian languages share a significant phonetic vocabulary. Why do you need, duration predictions and the paradigms that are actually quite rampant for English, where the Australian English and the American English and the British English are poles apart. Whereas if you look at Hindi, there's a gradient, there's a continuum. And why is there a continuum? The continuum is there because, of course, things have changed organically, but that continuum can also be exploited to innovate locally. I hope I made sense.
Very, very interesting. And not to put Professor Krishnan on the spot, but there's this whole talk of engineering in Indian languages, medicine in Indian. Are we going to see management courses in Indian languages anytime soon?
Well, management should be relatively easy to have in Indian languages. There are technical terms, but they can be quite easily, I think, converted into either local language terms or you can continue with them. So I don't see too much of a challenge in that domain. In fact, I think, let's look at the practical side of things. The practical side of things is that today, if you look at the students who come to IIM and compare them with, say, 25, 30 years ago, they are not speaking as good English as the guys who were speaking at that time. Today, a lot of people speak a mix of Hindi, English, sometimes other languages. When I walk in campus these days, every day when I go for my walk, I hear largely Indian languages and predominantly Hindi. So I think many of them are anyway operating in a multilingual context. And, actually the purity of Indian language is a bit of a, sorry, maybe I'll get beaten up, but a bit of a myth. Because, if you look at, when I spent 5 years in Indore, I was really shocked. The day I landed in Indore, I picked up a Hindi newspaper and I started reading it. The first thing I found was no sentence had more than half Hindi words. All of them were English words written in Devanagari. Okay, that's more the way most of the. So even the language which people are using every day in a newspaper is some kind of mixed language. It's not a pure Hindi that we studied in school all those years back. So I know this is not directly related to this, but I'm just saying that I think linguistic evolution has happened quite a bit in India, particularly in urban India. It's happened big time.
So let me pick on that in terms of the Indian context. Right? You said very interesting that you pointed out that there's a mix of Hindi and English. There are many such nuances and subtleties about the Indian context. And when we look at AI development today, how do we bridge the gap between Indian use cases and where the Indian technology, Indian models is? To give one example, I know Mahesh will talk about it a little later, but he has a unique problem from a very specialized domain, finance and banking. Now, if he goes to Ganesh directly, I'm sure the gap will be too wide between his business understanding and where the technology is. What role is, how do we bridge this gap? Like, can the IIMs play a role? How will IIT be? Maybe we start with Krishnan.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just shift the subject a little bit and then I'll just come back to this. See, one of the things we are trying to do even in management education is make it more accessible in general. And one of the things we are doing at IIM Bangalore is to use online learning as a way of making this happen. Our classroom models are not scalable, and in any case, they're expensive. They will never manage to reach all the people they need to reach. So our online learning activity is now trying to reach out to people across domains. And we started with English, but we are already moving rapidly into other languages as well. So we are starting with subtitling in other languages, but we will bring voiceover as well. We are trying to use various tools to make that happen. So the idea is that we will make a lot of the content online multilingual. We already have 95 courses running on Swayam and edX. We are now trying to curate these into various programs. And one of the most interesting experiments we are trying right now is how can we create a program which will help MSMEs become more competitive. So we are trying to take all the learning content we have in different domains and convert it more into a kind of question answer kind of a format. So if the learner poses a problem, we want from the content a kind of solution to be generated, or at least the relevant content from all our teaching material to be generated so that the person can immediately see that. So right now we're doing it a little ham-handed way, but eventually we want to use AI to make all of this happen. Now, if you combine all of this together, if you take the fact that we are making this available, we are also going to be multilingual, we'll also be able to be problem-centric, then you're actually creating a great platform for people across the country to solve their problems. So that's the way we are sort of approaching this problem right now.
Yes, thanks. I think Professor Krishnan really set up the stage for me. I'll start with areas in AI where the divergence between languages, their adaptation in speech and text is actually very less apparent, and where the synergy is a lot more, right? And let's start with speech, right? So speech, the style, right, the accent is very much built into DNA, right? So even if a person is speaking mixed Hindi and English, the nature of the English utterances is going to be very Hindi, right? So it has that influence. Likewise, for Tamil speakers speaking Hindi, it's not just with English. So I think the first thing is to really capture the style information, which again reflects into what we call prosody. It actually reflects in, the pitch, the energy associated with the phonemes. So that is still very grounded in Indian language. The DNA is still Indian languages, right? Now coming to text, while the vocabulary does see a lot of shift, the grammatical structure, the syntactic structure, right? You have the newspapers you talked about are still adapting a Hindi syntax and filling it with English words, leveraging that. So I'm really not being non-realistic when we say we leverage the commonality, because these are very stark commonalities. The syntactic structure is still very common, even in written text. And when it comes to the lexical choices, right, which I was being pointed out, and probably that is being highlighted here, the lexical divergences, I think that's where we need to bring in dictionary constraint, domain constraint. When I say dictionary, I don't really mean dictionaries of the year, right? I'm really talking about practical dictionaries, right, which could come from common usages. So bringing all of that into ensuring that we're able to handle extremely volatile situations where languages are also changing, and as the influence as of English as you go from city to the peri-urban areas to villages. We should be able to capture that, and we don't have as much data as the Western world has. That's exactly where we need to bring in domain knowledge, and we are very happy that we are able to do that.
So, how can industry collaborate with you guys? Be it the AI work that you're doing at Bharat Jain or any AI work that's happening at IIM Bangalore. What are the avenues for startups and the industry to come with their problems?
Thankfully, because the entire initiative is not bottlenecked by me as a faculty member, but has actual Section 8 not-for-profit company. Rishi is here. The best way is actually to collaborate and co-create. So collaboration is one very important element with Bharat Jain. We have several collaborations with IBM, with Zoho. We also have, been working closely with many of the companies that actually provide compute in India and help them ramp up. So Sunil is there from Yota. I think collaboration is one very, and it's not just collaboration with industry. We also collaborate extensively with the armed forces. I mean, the government, water and sanitation department. So collaboration is key, because then we can co-create. In several cases, it's also possible that we have developed models, we have developed expertise, and there's a need to be technology transferred or licensed. That's another mode. I would say we should explore. The good thing here is because we have a consortium, there's also an academic rigor brought in. We always think in terms of alternatives, lay out multiple alternatives. There's no one, I have a solution, show me the problem, right? When we actually see alternatives, there's a level playing field, and it's also liberating for the engagement. So please reach out to us. That's why we are here.
Yeah, I just want to step back for a moment. I think if you look back at the last 30, 40 years, one challenge India has faced across various technological shifts is that somehow we have not been able to ride the wave very effectively. Whether it be materials, you take nanotechnology, I mean, in semiconductors, there are several examples, so I don't need to go into them. So I think the question is, this time, how can we sort of make sure we don't miss the race or miss the boat or whatever you want to call it again. So I think traditionally we have been good at a few things. We have been good at some kind of capability creation at some level. I'm just thinking back to biotech about 40 years ago. Government invested in creating biotech programs in 10 universities. There was some basic competence created. There was, of course, some research going on in specialized institutions like NCBS, TIFR, and so on. But somehow it didn't go much beyond that. I think when it comes to AI this time, we have a slightly different opportunity, partly because of the use case situation that was mentioned earlier, and the fact that in general, we have embraced digital as well as data in a reasonably good way, both in the public as well as the private spheres. So this time, at least, there will be some pull from the application side to make us, take more forthright steps as far as AI is concerned. So I'm not too worried about diffusion, use of AI, more use cases getting developed and so on. But on the other question which Ganesh raised, which is, will we actually become a leader in technology and so on? I'm not so sanguine there, because historically that has been a even bigger challenge for us. And there, I'm not sure it's only a matter of money, by the way. Tomorrow, if the government were to say, I'll give you 5,000 crores, can you convert that 5,000 crores into really good world-leading technology? I'm not too sure about it. It's not just a money issue. It is an organizational issue. It is a structural issue. Unless we try to address some of those issues, that money is not going to translate into technology leadership. Money will help, but it's not going, that translation will not happen. So I think there's some good things happening there again. In the recent budget, we had an allocation of 20,000 crores to build technology leadership. Broadly put, there's a plan to set up a fund of funds. There are, of course, many startups, but I think we really need to have a much more concerted effort to focus on technology leadership if we want it to happen, which means multiple things need to happen. We need to be willing to find the right people to lead those organizations. You need to be able to assemble talent. Just remember, a lot of the things we have done in the last 10, 20 years have not been following traditional methods. You look at how Aadhaar was developed. It wasn't developed in one government research lab. You look at how UPI was developed. It wasn't developed like that either. So we have used unorthodox structural solutions to do a lot of this. For example, volunteers, using people like Nandan and his ability to attract top talent. We have not used the traditional route. So I think we really need to see how we are going to innovate in the organizational and structural domains if we are really going to create technology leadership.
On that note, I think it was a very scintillating conversation. I'm sure there are a lot of technology leaders sitting here who are going to realize that vision that you laid out. So thanks to both of you for joining this conversation. Now I'd like to request
Thank you to our speakers for that rich and engaging conversation. We now move to our opening keynote address, and it is our honor to welcome a distinguished leader from India's technology and defense sector. Please join me in welcoming Shri Manoj Jain, Chairman and Managing Director of Bharat Electronics Limited, to deliver the keynote.
Good morning, everybody. I will not talk any keynote per se. I will talk very basic things, because finally the basics only gives you the desired output. In case of AI also, we feel we have to work on the basics. And first basic is it should be known to all in the industry. So like in a Bell, like when we joined, we were of electronics or mechanical background, engineers were there. At the time, the basic thing was C language. Because everybody knew this C language is going to transform our way of working in industry. And that's why it was made mandatory for all of us to go for 5 days at least training on C. Whether it is any branch fellow is there while joining after that. And we used it. Whether we are an electronics engineer, whether I am doing FPGA coding or I am designing some RF, directly, indirectly, she influenced us. Time has come for the same for this AI ML. So this AI and ML language, if it is understood, or basics of this is understood by each and every engineer in the organization, then only the real impact of AI will be felt. Because finally AI is to be used across the domain. It is not to develop only some tools or using those tools providing some solutions. It is much beyond. It is for each and every aspect of business operation, how AI is going to be used. And not only used within the organization, how to develop tools and solutions which will to be used by our end customers. So end solutions, whatsoever we are developing, like we are developing radars, communication radios, C4I solutions, sonars. Now everywhere, how to add AI, how to give the extra value addition, because finally user is interested in that. And it is not across again some one or two domains. It is across all products and technologies which we are giving or delivering products. We should have AI. Now for that, first and foremost is giving awareness training to all our engineers. So we started, in BEL also we started, all our R&D engineers are right now exposed to AI ML basic course. A few are definitely given much more advanced things, like we are even recruitment itself, we are seeing, oh, AI and data science is there, that fellow is picked up a bit more, like IM professors have also told. We just take those type of fellow, a bit more chance of employment is there, a fellow who knows this, because it is the next buzzword, everybody should know. And if somebody comes as in-tech level itself with this type of awareness, efforts of the organization is a bit less on him. So we prefer that. Of course, if somebody has come with reasonable level only, we have to send them for advanced trainings. So many IITs, DIIT, so many places are there now who are giving advanced trainings on AI. So whether it is a 3 months course, 6 months course, or a MTech program. So we have to send that. We are sending at BEL also. So that has to be done for a group of scientists or engineers who will really develop those tools. So really advanced training is required for them, but the basic training is required for all. A fellow who is designing a radar, if he also understands what AI is for him, then only he can develop something. So this domain knowledge merged with the technology, that is very much required for this. And for this, first and foremost is awareness. Second is now infrastructure. We have to create the infrastructure for that. And here the real infrastructure is high-end GPU-based servers available to each and every R&D engineer, at least to start with. Actually, finally, it should not be only R&D engineer. It is for the finance guy also. It is for my HR guys also. They should have that access. Because you should have high performance engines available to you. Typically, they are GPU-based engines. And especially in defense, we can't trust so-called internet. So all the research, all the development, all the processes are done on intranet. So I don't have a luxury of direct chat GPT. But we have loaded those models in our intranet. And for that, we require a very, very high-end servers. We have invested heavily on that. It looks sometimes ridiculous. In 2018, when we started our AI-related mission for defense, the first thing our government also told, firstly, you come out with budget for this AI in defense. Get it approved from your board. And let me tell you, at that time, board did not know about AI. Frankly, in defense, what they are going to do? Why? What is this training? What is the extra investment required? But our ministry told, no, you have to come out. We had come out with our own workshop, our own roadmap, approved by our board. That this much investment I have to do, I will do. Commitment is given by us for that. That, then servers, then training, then projects, AI-based projects. Total roadmap for next 5 years was made by us. And at that time, many of within BEL also were thinking, this roadmap really will work or not. As it was told by previous speaker, we always think, no, this is not going to happen. But the technology changes so fast that within 2 years, we found whatsoever budget we had planned. It is too less. Even one good high-end server is 20 crore, 30 crore rupee. If you have to invest on that, we started with 5 crore budget for one high-end GPU server, and that we installed at one place. Then we found one place is not sufficient. I have to have at least 10 places because accessibility, and now all the time server is used for training purposes only. If I don't give that type of a free access to my own young engineers and scientists, I can't exploit this tool. So that is very much important, that you should have a high-end server. The third and most important in defense especially is data. We don't get data because data is secret. Nobody can share directly the data to us, including our own defense forces. They can't share so easily. Even that requires so much approvals even for sharing to a defense company like us. Forget about private, I can tell you. It is very, very difficult for any startup or others to work on defense, mainly because of accessibility to data. And until data is there, you can't train anything. And until you train, you can't give a solution. So it is like a chicken and egg. Experts are there. Now we know. We have developed our own in-house strengths, but we know much more is available in the startup community. In Bangalore, though, you know, each and everybody, at least I don't know how many numbers of startups are there in Bangalore. So until you tap that potential of startups also, along with your own in-house strengths, you can't deliver a good product. So we thought, let us create this type of incubation centers also, where our user and startups can sit together at common place and then develop some solutions, where user is mainly critical for two things: accessibility of data, and second thing is, finally, once I have made a product or solution, it has to be sold, because finally we are a business entity. Our startup also is not just for the development. He wants a business finally out of it. So that again, the user reps positioned there can do. So we have come out with that concept of incubation center for AI. For Army and Navy, it is successfully running. For Air Force also, we wanted to create, so that all the three forces can work together and develop something really great, which can be scaled across. So this type of framework very much required. One more interesting thing, with that I will try to close my talk. AI maturity model. Now every industry, especially like PSU, every PSU also is talking about AI. But how much mature they are? Have they made a solution based on the elementary expert rules, or they have really used the AI tools? How effectively, how much they have trained their data, whether the solution which they have made is really state of the art? Unfortunately, that type of a tool we did not find. Again, to be used on intranet type of domain, not on internet. So we have developed that type of a tool also. That tool, with asking some questions, etc., that will assess organizational level awareness of AI and give them ranking. How much mature the organization is from AI perspective. And then about the product or solution. This product or solution is really can be termed as a real AI, and what score out of 1 to 10, let us say, whether it scores 8 or 9 or it is still 2 or 3. Because once it is a new technology, everybody will talk, yeah, my solution is AI based. How much AI, we don't know. And then we have to compare apple to orange sometimes. So that, then our ministry told, no, you would come out. We took help of academia, of course, and come out with that type of AI maturity model assessment tool. That tool will give, then only you will come to know, like every organization will come to know where they stand in this journey of AI. Because until you know where you are, you can't improve. You think you are great, but actually you have used very elementary AI tool and claiming that you are a great industry. So that also should not be there. So these type of things, adding security to AI framework, adding how to see that the data which is there is not biased data, so that the solution what you are making is really secure and trustworthy. So those are the challenges which as a defense industry we are looking at. Academia looks at differently, industry startups look at differently. We as industry looks at these type of awareness or these type of challenges, and it is our duty at industry to see that we provide best solution and framework, working really in a collaborative way with all others. Because until we work in a collaborative way, this type of a new technology cannot be delivered so fast to our end users. Otherwise, as typically it was taking, any new technology comes, it was taking 15 to 20 years to finally go to our end defense users, typically for a great technology, because it's a different cycle time. But this type of technology cannot wait for that type of a time. We had thought of within 5 years, this type of technology should go to my end users. And let me tell you, in 2018-19, the roadmap was created. And by 2024, even from BEL also, we have delivered AI-based products to our defense forces, or they are using. So the total cycle time planned was 5 years. That within 5 years, at least first use of AI is felt by my end users also. Good framework is done. So in defense itself, there is a lot of challenges. That is our duty jointly to solve those challenges, provide that type of infrastructure, that type of a ecosystem for each and everybody, each and every startup and industry to work together along with our users. Because in defense, until user owns, nothing can happen. Let me tell you. Even like if BEL owns, it will not happen. BEL plus Army or Navy or Air Force owns a concept, then only. The first thing in defense was making awareness for users. So it started with making awareness for users, then making awareness for industry, and then only this type of ecosystem which has developed reasonably good, I can tell you. It is reasonably good. All DPSUs knows, and we have come out with our own use cases, and that is monitored very, very closely by our defense ministry. And that way only in last 5 years, we have seen where we were and where now we are. Now we are talking about 50 crore worth of a data center or a GPU server. And my board immediately sanctions also. So in last 5 years, we have seen lot of awareness has happened across echelons, and that is helping us. And time has come where each and every product which we are selling out should have an AI component. We have planned that, but again, what level of maturity that AI component is, until that is critically evaluated, we may not give a real AI-based experience to our end users. And you have seen in the recent wars and others also how AI is effective tool for a decision support system. Actually, there also I was shocked. The basic decision support system use of AI is very, very less. It is there basically in the sensors. Any sensor, whether it is defense or non-defense sensor data comes, there you are putting real AI-based tools. But finally, that tool, AI-based tool at the input level is okay. But am I using it for decision support? Means when all data is available and I have to now mimic the real expert system of the human mind. In that type of a decision support system, I feel still not much research is done. Because I was told even not many research papers are available for decision support system, which actually will finally replace human mind for defense applications, or C4I applications. So we are also in phases doing. So firstly, we have again started with all the sensor level only AI addition and analysis and other things. But in the DSS, that is a journey which we are doing now jointly with our defense forces. So a lot of challenging things are there. Main thing is this type of technology should be understood by each and everybody in the organization. And then only it can create real impact within organization and by delivering products which will finally goes to the end users and impact them. That is in brief I wanted to tell you. Thank you. Thank you.
I can ask one question. There are many startups here today. How can they participate in your incubation center?
Firstly, any startup can approach BEL. All we have for startups, they can come through collaborative R&D mode. They can come through IDEX mode. The IDEX itself is an initiative of Ministry of Defense, where BEL and HAL are the key main stakeholders. So IDEX challenges are there. And third one, which I have told you, this incubation center. So AI incubation center, which we have created. So many startups are already engaged there. And that is working 5 days a week, maybe 6 days a week. I am not fully sure. And there, our reps and our defense forces officers are sitting, and startups can come, discuss with them, and come out with a framework. And then we can give very, very quick way of how to use the startup potential. So these are the 2 or 3 ways by which we are interacting with the startups. We are working with many of the startups. And one more innovative way which I found is why not they come through academia path. Like in academia also there are incubation centers, and those incubation centers, the startups can work through academia and then come to industry. Actually, we have much more flexibility to work with academia than with the startups because of so-called L1 or due diligence about the company. But with academia, there is no due diligence required. Like IIT or IIM, naam hi kafi hai. So with that, even we can work with that also. We have seen many of the startups have come and front-ended by academia. So that is also one more method which we are exploiting.
Familiar with that method, having been at Prasar. So great, great insights. Thank you for coming today.
On that inspiring note, we now move to our first panel discussion of the day, exploring how AI can move beyond proof of concepts. To lead this conversation, I'd like to invite Mr. Alok Agrawal, co-founder of AI for India, to the stage. He'll be moderating the session and introducing our distinguished panelists. Mr. Agrawal, over to you.
Okay, welcome everyone. So this session, we broadly titled AI in industry, and that's something we just heard about as well. It's about the applications and what are the challenges industry faces from adoption of AI, etc. And one of the things we talk about is going beyond this. So, some interesting facts. In the recent Deloitte study done globally, which shows that AI adoption, Gen AI adoption in India is amongst the highest in the world and highest in Asia Pacific. One data. CPRG, Ramadan is here. They did a survey with college students in January earlier this year. 90% of them are using AI tools for their academic work. ChatGPT now claims that most of their users come from Asia. But when we talk to the startups, and I think they'll all agree, they say, but where are the projects? They're not able to break beyond POC, right? So that's the context. There is a little dichotomy from euphoria versus actual application. And I think one of the things which was highlighted earlier as well was that there are challenges for industry to adopt on this. So first of all, let me start by posing this question to each of you, which is, what are the applications you are seeing of AI within your industry, within your companies? And then we'll come on to the rest. So, Prasad, maybe I talk to you first. Banking is one industry which has transformed completely, right? In 15 years, it gone from 100% physical to almost 100% digital. I'm sure all banks are actively looking at AI. What are the applications and areas that you are looking at?
Sure. Firstly, morning everyone, and thanks for having me over. So I'm a part of HDFC Bank. I had their technology center here in Bangalore. I think AI is, and when I talk about AI, I'm talking about Gen AI because traditionally ML has been used, for marketing and credit and risk use cases for a long period of time. But at HDFC Bank, we are investing significantly in a series of programs which we believe will help the bank in a big way. And so to give you some example, and these are real use cases, we are way beyond POC. I think last year was POC, but the way at which Gen AI has matured, there are proper programs in place. At a very fundamental level, we believe that this technology will make banking simple. So that is sort of the primary goal. And what I mean by that is, in spite of digital, in spite of, net, mobile, and so on, what is the best way you would like to interact with a bank? If you ask yourself the question, I'm sure it would be, I would like to walk across to a branch and, talk to someone. So that still remains the preferred mode, but you can't scale that up, right? So, and also if we look at, let's say, our maids or, our drivers, you go to rural India, it is impossible or difficult for them to interact with the digital channels. So a huge push is how do we make our services, available using the Gen AI technology, right? So be it on our public website, be it on, being able to do transactions on net banking, mobile banking in a simple manner through language, multilingual, right? You should be able to speak, hey, I want to transfer, mujhe itna paisa transfer karna hai, and the technology should take over. So that's one big area. And then there are programs on operational efficiency, improving risk and all of that as well. Yeah.
So you are looking at mainly customer interactions and customer facing applications, which is very good. Mahesh, let me come to you. So you have created Samarthanam, which is the account aggregator framework, which allows the exchange of data and secure manner between various financial organizations.
Yeah.
What kind of applications are you seeing?
So, firstly, one interesting, thing which is we all are looking into is the actually in the area of fraud. Okay, in fraud especially, I think Gen AI or AI, any of those, whichever term you want to use, it is being used. But I'm not sure how many have actually gone to production. So, example, we are having a division called Samarthanam Labs, and we are working with a couple of banks. And I think even before you work on the solutioning, whether it's AI or non-AI, I think it is important to focus on the problem, because I think everybody is into this keyword buzzword that I am into Gen AI, this and that. So I think when you lose the focus on what is the problem you're trying to solve, I think you'll not the output will not be good. So we have understood over the last few years that fraud is an issue, and you do have your places like Chamtara and No, which are you're possibly they all have your PhDs in scams, and we all are behind actually them. So if I could use a few of them as your volunteers, I think I could have a very strong anti. Okay, so that is on the back end side, and on the front end side, where we see the industry is yet to implement, frankly, is in the languages. So actually, your first session for me was very interesting to hear the importance of languages. I've worked like almost 20 years in your digital languages, and I feel that it has to be embraced a lot more in the financial sector. I will speak specifically in your DPI, digital public infrastructure, and in the account aggregator. We have a very, very simple screen about taking a consent. So in India, especially to your concept of taking a consent itself is very new, because we are agreeing to give any data we want for your coupon of Swiggy. We are happy to give away all our data, right? So when you have a consent, which is you're beautifully designed by Mighty, like you have 4 to 5 fields. But an ordinary person, I don't think, is able to understand what exactly that consent is, right? So there, I think it becomes very important for us to be able to have your visual version of the consent, where it explains to me that for what you're actually going to give the consent. And also we need, because this audio and video is very important. See, we need to understand, many of us, including me, we can speak many Indian languages, but we can't read the languages. So, but it has to be in audio and video. And exactly due to that, I'm saying that we need to understand what the problem are, and it has to be implemented, and it has to go to production. Otherwise, simply doing POC, it isn't enough. Your Gartner report has actually said over 30% of the POC is actually shelved because of the lack of data and not understanding the problem.
Right. So I see one common emerging theme, which is consumer interface, and of course fraud is the important part. Gaurav, let me come to you as the sole representative of the manufacturing sector here, and you have all your life experience in the automobile industry, 4-wheeler, others. What applications are you seeing for AI? What is the backend, and you are adding complexity of manufacturing plant, and also possibility there. And your product itself is adopting AI, right? So where are you seeing traction?
Thank you, Alok. I think, we structure this, the response in 3 categories or 3 buckets. And when we were talking earlier, the aim is to be that how to move the POC to a PO. That is where the magic will start to happen. And that's when we start looking at industrialization. So in our sector, if you look at the first set, if you look at manufacturing, like you mentioned, there are already work areas happening in our organization itself in terms of manufacturing efficiencies. You know, you're talking of equipment efficiencies, you're talking of predictability of maintenance and therefore efficiency, safety, using visual and other algorithms as well. More importantly, now we're looking at working with the suppliers also in terms of entire supply chain efficiency coming into picture. So that's an area that is huge or hugely available for new opportunities in India personally. Second is in terms of consumer facing activities. Already at our end, we are working in the area of conversational AI. We are working already in the area of voice AI as well. So whenever we have our call centers talking to our consumers, the entire sentiment analysis, etc., that is being worked on very actively. The third area now is actually leveraging in the area of marketing and tools also. In fact, I must happy to share with you, Alok, that our team is now leveraged and put across an entire AI-generated advertising campaign also. So in terms of making sure that and using Gen AI content is very specific to consumers, that's an area that can always evolve even to higher levels. And the third area is actually for employee engagement. We very often underrate that importance of the in-house customer that we all have. So that's an area that we try to work on at TVS as well. So the three buckets would be consumer facing, manufacturing, supply chain, as well as then you're looking at your own internal employee. These are the three areas where you have huge area opportunity for POC to become PO.
Interesting. Let's come to the IT business. Satish, people are predicting that all coding will be done by AI and humans will be useless. What is the reality? You are not only using these skills, but you're also providing AI solutions to enterprise, right? So where are you seeing the reality and the actual traction?
It's a great question. I think it's one of those questions. It's $1 million question, maybe $1 billion question. So look, I'm part of Edgeware, which is a subsidiary of Infosys, and we're focused on building AI platforms that can be leveraged by large enterprises around the world. So that's the context of my experience and my answer. See, multiple use cases. I'll come to your second question a little later because something that we're internally experiencing that. But there are numerous use cases around the world where AI obviously has applicability. But this POC to production is not an India problem. Okay, if it is framed as an India problem, it is. It's a worldwide problem. Okay, everybody in the world has this this big challenge of here we see a great technology which has tremendous potential, but how do I really realize the benefit of this, right? But there's a consumer side facing things, and then the enterprise side of AI. The enterprise side of AI has a very different set of dynamics, right? And that has to be circumvented. Having said that, some of the enterprises have been charting their course, right? In some of the banks, we have been using this in their KYC process, in the corporate KYC, not necessarily the consumer, the corporate KYC, which is far more complex, right? If you look at many of the processes that they do, it's all about, can you really leverage this technology to drive straight through processing, right? And it is not about just AI as a singular technology. It is a convergence of technologies that you have to bring together along with AI to deliver this kind of value. So I don't think the enterprises should look at AI as a singular, a silver bullet, right? It's all about bringing multitude of technologies along with AI to drive value. You're seeing similar things in insurance. One of the things that we did internally, maybe it's a cue for some of the startups here, is to look at some personas in these industries and say, how can AI help assist these personas to do their job better, right? I'll give you an example. In the insurance industry, we picked underwriters as a persona, right? We say, okay, it's one of the most complex personas that exists in the insurance industry. How can AI simplify their job, their decision-making, either the cycle of decision-making or the nature of decision-making, right? And so one is looking from a process perspective and persona perspective, you'll start seeing a lot of use cases. Coming to our own internal organization, we are embracing, I think, as he rightly put, from a product management and a product marketing perspective, I think we will see dramatic changes. In fact, our product management organization, which decides what's the future of the platform, what should be built, when it should be built, why it should be built, how it should be built, is completely augmented, significantly augmented by AI. And we are using Gen AI to do that. So one is in terms of creating the strategy, validating the strategy, and creating a roadmap. AI can play a role, and we are leveraging this. Second is marketing. I think that's one area where I believe it's going to get disrupted significantly, right? And it's almost happening right now as we speak, all the way from concept to design to delivery. All those things can be transformed in the marketing value chain. I think that's the second area. The third one is in the coding. Now coming to your question. Obviously, Gen AI and all the Copilot ecosystem that's been built around this is of tremendous value. And I can tell you within our own organization in EdgeWorld, our engineering organization is probably the most benefited function and an individual in this context, right? We are seeing close to 40 to 50% improvement in productivity. One is the productivity improvement. The second is also the quality of code that you can build, right? There is the other thing is about the quality. So in terms of the time to value, the quality, and also the productivity, all these things, I think we're seeing benefit of this technology in the coding area.
One very important thing from what you're saying, and this correlates to some of the conversation recently had, which is the personas. So to adopt AI, you need to identify the personas that the AI needs to provide. It's not about the technology anymore. And just comparing it to, so we spoke to, I personally spoke to many CEOs to come and attend. And many of them were fearful. They said, can I send my CTO, CIO, CTO, etc. for this? The CEOs, and actually what we need is CEOs. Because the CEOs will define the personas and not the CTOs. The CTOs will look at the technology and say, okay, what can we do? So from that perspective, Surya, you are you have set up the largest NVIDIA GPU cluster in India, and you have your Shakti cloud. So you have an overview of the demand which is coming, right? So you have actually the pulse on what people are actually doing. So give us some insights into what people are doing.
Alok, thank you for having me here. We are actually seeing, first is there's a whole lot of the trainings of models taking place, which is a good thing. There was a whole lot of debate across India the last couple of months whether India should make its own foundational LLM or not. Mr. Nilekani was on record to say that India should rather focus on being the use case capital of the world. And then there was a contrary view by government that because of geopolitical factors of sovereignty and having a complete self-control on our own models, because LLMs ultimately will start reflecting your own culture and your own language context. So that thing, because of India AI mission pushing for multiple large language models to be made in India, not just one or two. And yesterday I was actually sitting with officials there, and I was amazed to hear that out of 503 proposals for GPU access which they have received, 47 of them actually are for large language models. And these are not small language models, large language models. Each model asking for more than 2,000 GPUs. Now, this is humongous. Just 18 months back, we were talking about does India need 1,000 GPU, and today we are actually talking about 1 lakh GPUs, right? And of course, then the rest of the models, who are talking about SLMs, industry-specific SLMs, and then inferencing obviously will be much larger demand when you start having population scale, adoptions of AI. So one thing I can clearly see is that the models are being built thanks to government subsidizing the LLMs 100%. So that thing, Sarvam has been has already been sanctioned GPUs. In fact, as we speak, it's getting trained on our GPUs now. And a couple of other LLMs have been, given GPUs, and this will continue further. So that is the training part. What I can see is that, from a industry point of view, the people who possibly already have developed some use cases and actually have, commercially gaining from that. That way I can see from across the industry customers. So there is a GCC based out of Pune. I mean, they're Switzerland based, but they have adopted AI on scale for drug discovery and their drug asset management. They're recommending their customers which drug to adopt, which drug to, de-license and things like that. There are, I'm not taking names, but there are very successful companies who in medical diagnostics, they are actually have been certified by US authorities that second recommendation of doctor is not required because the AI has become so good, right? There are customers who are taking raw videos and then creating personalized videos, for example. And these are all, I'm talking about the use cases where I know the customers are commercially successful, right? Of course, like we have got Infosys here who have got AI into their entire Finacle built into that, and it's acting like a co-pilot into the usage of a Finacle product. We have examples of IIT Bombay, right, and IIT Chennai, who are creating lots of models, who will be open sourced and then will be made available on platforms like Bhashini. The best example I would say of which I can say is maybe UPI in the making in AI space is Bhashini, where I've seen their scale to increase from about 2 million inferencing per day to about 16 million as we speak per day, right? Through various APIs which are coming from various government ministries users and maybe Aadhaar APIs and all, which is like 8-time usage of inferencing just in the last 4 months, right? So the fundamental thing which I can see based on all the interaction with the customers is that while the model making effort is mostly either a government funded effort, the money is available, or maybe some private equity is willing to spend their dollars for some future gain, right? So that effort will happen. Some entrepreneur is not putting in money, right? Which actually is a sad part. It is more of a VCP money or a government grant which are actually leading to that. Even in case of a large-scale inferencing, the discussion of a POC converting to a full production use case, that dilemma of that you are spending, even for inferencing of a reasonable scale, you still need GPUs and they are going to cost a huge amount of money. Whether this benefit which AI is supposed to give to me, whether that is worth the cost which I'm going to incur on that. So that is the dilemma which typically is a dialogue between a CIO proposing that to a CEO and CFO, and then they just stop short of taking that decision. That is one part. Second, I hear Mr. Manoj Jain of BES talking, the CMD, and that is the conversations I've seen, especially from banking industry or the regulated industries and defense forces and all, that can you give us an air gap solution, right? We cannot be supposed to be on internet, and can you, give us a solution which is completely isolated, and we are not going to touch internet, or even if we touch internet, it has to be in a very regulated way and things like that. So that is the second part which people are very wary of. They don't want to use hyperscalers. They don't want to use internet-based products. They want to use intranet-based products, even if it's hosted. They understand that possibly BEL can afford to spend 500 crores, on GPUs, but majority of the organization, given the risky nature, it is huge opportunity, but it's risky, so people don't want to spend that type of capex also. So how do we bring, that you are able to give a sovereign solution, you are able to give an air gap solution, you are able to give an intranet solution with customers bringing their own lease lines and terminating there. You also are able to give it on a cloud model that people don't spend capex and rather just pay by the hour of whatever GPU capacity they're using. And of course, it remains a completely sovereign product. That is what I think is a combination customers are looking forward to. Good part is these things are available now, right? Unlike which, like so many times it's not available, you always have a dilemma, either buy, which is very capex hungry, or go to hyperscaler, which also become very costly. And of course, it's not sovereign. People are very scared, especially from an AI point of view. So what we are able to do, and I think that is how I can see maybe some triggers are happening, that we are able to give this usage-based thing. This is the most advanced, sort of a NVIDIA infrastructure which we have created. It's like a globally comparable. It's actually one of the only 5 infrastructure in the world which has been certified by NVIDIA like this. And we are able to, with the subsidy of Government of India, if you add on that, even that 40% subsidy, a GPU like a H100 is now available at sub-dollar per hour range. So I would say this model of being able to do your AI in a very intranet way, in a sovereign way, with your data being completely secure, and still not needing to invest capex and totally take it on a usage basis. I think these are the things which it's a matter of time that people will start finding more and more use cases. This hygiene issue of having to spend so much of money and my data being not secure will go away, and the scale will start coming in.
Also echoing some of the conversation which happened in the first session, Professor Krishna and Professor Dinesh talked about, which is collaboration, very few industry investment in R&D. It's
absolutely, yeah.
So now that brings me to the second question overall. which is what are the challenges or shortcomings or issues we are facing with the current solutions and models which are available from an industry perspective? Because sometimes the developers don't have that appreciation. So we good to hear from you guys. So Gaurav, let's start with you. What is your experience and what are the challenges?
I think, like Sunil, you said very clearly, one of the challenges we face was and is rather that how do we make it work within our own system? We don't want to, we still feel there's a risk of connecting outside, and hence that limitation is there. So if that can be addressed, I'd be more than happy to look at solutions. The second is in terms of, frankly, the change. So when we give an approval for some project, by the time it gets into execution, is already a version 5 or version 6 happening. So what you approved for becomes redundant actually. And hence that it is good to say actually the pace is good, but then, the whole vision of saying approval is for X, but it will take into X plus delta, and that it becomes a challenge to keep going back to the board, to keep asking for variations and delta changes. And the third one is actually the understanding of the persona and the real problems. Very often we have seen that a lot of academic activity comes up for approval. And when you ask them that, where will the AI help us into activity, it is mostly converting real life physical into digital. And what's the next step? And that's the question mark which comes in. But I can say that at our end, at least in TVS, we've got a large workforce working on digital and AI. It goes into high 3-digit numbers of manpower. So there's a lot of investment being done. Data lake investments have all been done 4 or 5 years ago. So that progress has been done. But the next step is where we are working on, but I think we can increase the pace definitely.
So I think your challenges are multifold. Too many solutions are out there. Okay, number one. And if you go on Twitter, too much noise is there. Okay, there are so many things we don't know to use this solution, that solution. Which model to use? It is very, very confusing. So, what we do is we just pick a particular model and we are sticking to it, because we know that once we know how to, solve the problem with one model, it is quite easy to go across the model. And we do have a skill gap for sure. Okay, just because somebody has gone, for a course for 1 week, 1 month, and if they're having the resume where they know all the buzzwords, it won't work. So I would advise them that it would be good for them to volunteer, with few companies, Section 8 companies, where you get the practical knowledge. Okay, that's what is required. For example, Samati, the first 2 years, we built the entire company with about 35 volunteers. Okay, and today you see it is already 6 years and we are able to deliver. So I would say that we have a skill gap, and we would like to see in the your curriculum, AI is introduced not only in theory, but it should be practical. So if it has to be practical, it has to be actually through if they're able to work in the industries. And that's where I think the industry has to play a big role in opening the doors. Okay, to have actually students where they're able to train. So if we start working on it, now within a year or two, you will see a difference. But even 1 year, in my opinion, is actually slow. So we need to act very, very fast on that.
Talent is crucial. Since you are planning these solutions as well, what is the gap between the hype and the reality also a challenge for adoption? Because what is being promised and what is actually being delivered is not necessarily the same.
Absolutely. I think you hit it on the nail. When we engage with clients, that's the first chasm we have to cross. I think there is a huge amount of expectation of what's the art of possible. But when rubber meets the road, you will see that you start peeling the onion. Simple things like, to go after anything to do with AI, you need to have data which is ready, good quality data. And the current enterprises which have siloed systems and processes, to have universal data to drive universal AI in the context of an enterprise is a very huge leap. And that is the first challenge that they will realize. While they all feel they're way ahead in their data governance, once we hit the road, we'll realize they're so behind, especially in terms of context of how much maturity is needed to serve the needs of AI. That is one. Second is the kind of guardrails that organizations need to have in place to manage a disruptive and a powerful technology such as AI is very different than any other technologies that we've historically seen. Just to give you some examples, when we engage with legal to close a contract, I'm just taking a very simple example. I don't believe legal in organizations are mature to have a conversation on AI-related liabilities and controls and risks. Right? So how do you close a contract? Contract that would have been probably closed in a week probably can take months together just because, they don't know how to close these contracts. I'm just giving you one simple example of why hype and reality is so different, right? One thing is for sure, we at least strongly believe that the challenge is not going to be about models. We will have numerous models, whether it is, abstracted level models or some specific small language models, etc. All these things. I think the real challenge in our view, the enterprises will face is about orchestrating all this. Going back to what he was mentioning earlier, this is the predicament anybody faces when there's a fast-moving technology, right? What you start with is what you will deploy. You should know that. You should know the day you start designing. You should know the day you deploy is going to be different. So how do you navigate this? So orchestrating all these things is going to be complex. So there are multitude challenges, right? The reality is, of course, AI is extremely powerful. There's no doubt about it. I think we've all experienced it personally. We can see that playing out. But the journey an organization has to take to really get to this is quite a bit.
Sir, from your bank's perspective, what are the challenges you see? With the current solutions?
So, as we implement this technology, there are, a bunch of engineering and technical problems. So that's for sure. I would categorize them maybe in two buckets. One is essentially how do you scale the technology, and what I mean is not the AI technology. So I'll give you an example. I spoke about taking AI for customer service. Now, as a bank, just on the retail side, we will have about anywhere between 500 to 800 features or functionalities. So typically when you look at function calling examples and things like that, that the Googles of the world put, there'll be some 3 or 4 of them. But will it actually scale when you have so many options? And this is only one part of the bank, right? So those are problems that we are working on. So that's one bucket of problems. The second is how do you scale and make it commercially viable? I think Sunil spoke about it. So if we have to take voice technology for close to 6 crore customers, does it really is it at a price point where it is making sense, right? So those are sort of couple of issues, and the other piece which needs senior management support is this is not a linear path. The technology is so new that it will be zigzag. I mean, we are pretty sure we will reach the outcome, but it's not like, a typical digital project, which is predictable and, you will make a very predictable progress. So the path is going to be zigzag, and that is something which, the executive team should buy into, right? So that's sort of the other piece. Yeah.
So that's quite good that you were able to do that. What Satish was talking about. So you're able to manage the evolution of the entire project cycle as well. So Sunil, one of my understanding or observations is that while you are setting up the infrastructure, what the users need is always different from what you said.
Yeah.
Right? How do you, what is your observation now?
Yeah. See, I think, let me just tell you, whatever the customers are asking for, I can boil that down into possibly 4 buckets. Cost, right? Anything and everything in India will go at a population scale. We have seen UP and we have seen examples of smartphones, 3G, 4G, 5G. We all know that. We will adopt technology at scale, but it has to deliver great value to me at the lowest possible cost, right? That is how we as India operates. So how do I take care of cost, make it completely usage based? How do I take care of scalability? As like he said, that you may start with a POC. You may start want to small because you have to experiment. You don't want to put too much of money. But once my customers adopt it, I should be able to scale at crazy space. That is second. Third is, of course, especially in AI context, sovereignty, right? It is like my data should not go out, air gap, as per different industries demand, there may be different variation of this sovereignties, security, data safety angle, but that is the third angle. And fourth is co-creation, most important. I tell you, my customers are not the end customers of AI, right? End customers actually are approaching the intermediaries, the people who are building models, the people who are fine-tuning models, who are building apps on the top of that. These intermediaries in turn are coming to me for taking my underlying services, right? So unless and until, and I think that that's the theme of the whole event, that co-creation, that unless the underlying infrastructure builders, the PaaS builders, the model builders, the data set providers, the app providers, they all work together, the end result will not be there. So in so many cases, I end up telling my customer, okay, this is what I will provide. I'll bring in my partner, who is also my customer. He will provide the solution, and then we'll work together, So, so coming on this, how do they want? What we have done is, one is that we have brought down the cost in India, at a much lesser level compared to what is prevailing worldwide, right? Just to give you example, any let's say standard GPU, which may be available at let's say $10, $12 per hour in a developed market like US. In India, it has started coming as sub $2, right? Even when you are giving the most advanced technology, right? That is the price difference which has come in. And again, I'm saying on the top of that, if you start adding government subsidies, right, it starts becoming at a much lower level. Second is you are making services granular. Not everybody need a full GPU, right? There will be people who are training models who need thousands of GPUs at a single cluster. But there is other end of the spectrum, especially startups, who just say, just give me one GPU, or rather a slice of a GPU, right? If you go further advanced, they are saying, why should I need even GPU? Just give me Llama, just give me API, and just charge me by the number of tokens I'm inputting or outputting, right? So unless we start creating these individual services, right, that it actually becomes at a consumption level, at a token level, instead of even at a GPU level, we will not be able to grow the industry. If we want to grow every single part of the ecosystem, the people like BEL and the people like Army, for example, will have different needs altogether, where sovereignty angle will take over anything else. But the people who are startups, who are experimenting, who actually have got a seed money, and they want to rather use that money on their salaries and skill sets and not on GPUs per se, I'll have to give them those minor increments of compute so that they can keep on sustaining that. So these angles of sovereignty, 100%, air gap solutions. Can you give me air gap solutions which hyperscalers cannot give? Yes, that is a solution I'll have to give. Cost effective. As I said, third is scalability. You should be able to scale to much larger limits. Suddenly, today's startup become tomorrow's unicorn. You never get to know that. And of course, finally, co-creation. That is what is required. Yeah.
So, coming to the last few minutes of our session, I thought I'll ask you same question that you want to ask again. How can startups, especially AI developers, startups, work with you? And more importantly, we all spoke about access to data. How can you collaborate in providing them data? And what are the other things they can do to work closely with you, because it's all about collaboration. It's something we all agree on. So, Surya, let's start with you.
Yeah, so we actually are already running two programs. We call them Shambho program and Rudra programs. And these programs are like a standard cloud operators program where we are giving credits to startups. So today we have around, I think, 25 good startups who we have given them access to GPUs practically for next 2 years. So that they are able to take them from concept to the maturity commercial stage. And when they go to commercially live and self-sustaining, then obviously they can possibly go to my advanced service and start possibly becoming a paid customer. But this is something which we feel is is our contribution for possibly some potential business benefit in future of growing this whole ecosystem. So these programs are available. They're available on my public website also. Startups can just subscribe. Any deep tech partner of NESCOM can come through a Shambho program, or anybody who is a NVIDIA Inception partner, he can come through my Rudra program. Yeah.
So we already work with a lot of startups. I mean, there is so much to do. It is impossible, for one organization to do it all. In a more structured way, we do run a startup accelerator program through Pravega Ventures, and people can follow, and they open up for cohorts to come in, and we talk to startups and evaluate and so on. So that's the second way. Third way is, please reach out to me. I mean, if you're working on something interesting, reach out to me, and happy to understand more. See, on the data side, since we are a regulated entity, it's very difficult for us to share data. So that piece we'll have to figure out depending on the use case, how much data is required and so on. Yeah.
See, Infosys has, as an organization, set up Infosys Innovation Network, and it's been there for many years. I think that would be a good channel to engage. The other is, I think, if any of you are interested, you can reach out to me. We are obviously working with many real world problems with our customers. And I can tell you there are so many unsolved problems in this space as we work through the details. So I think there are enough problems for startups to really take up and do meaningful work. So I'd encourage you guys to reach out to me personally. Otherwise, the Infosys Innovation Network would be a formal way in which we can engage with them.
So we are already working with a few startups, who are specializing in the fraud part, and what we are more interested is to work with actually the banks, by which we are able to solve the problem. And of course, the main issue we have is how do we get access to data? We do not want access to the real data. We want synthetic data and some inputs. So if the way we can help actually is, if anybody wants to volunteer, do internship, etc. Because we are a very small company, like 17, 18 of us, Section 8 companies. So we are not like all of them here who have the money. But the one we can help is to train and actually work with anybody who's extremely hungry and who wants to show some quick results is the way we can contribute.
So I think, anyone can write to us on our website or reach out to me directly as well. Like we've seen, for these kind of initiatives, top-down really helps. Otherwise, it gets lost in the entire system. And I must add to, Mahesh's point, we are hungry. We are very hungry. So please help us out, definitely. One thing I must say, Alok, is before we wrap up, is that I'm new to Bangalore. And if all the think tanks are here and more outside, what can be the solution for Bangalore traffic? So if Jain AI, agentic AI, whatever AI can help, I would love to see a solution coming up and help us to see it in real life at least. That can be a real proof coming up.
That's homework for Jain. Thank you very much. I think this was really helpful. I learned a lot of things. So clear signals which are coming out is industry is open to collaboration. We have to believe that we are open to collaboration. The message to all startups, I think we have to build this collectively. Issue of data and sovereignty is a sensitive one, so let's understand that sensitivity and work accordingly, rather than saying, oh, I'm not getting access to data, and let's not work for it. Getting the right kind of talent, and therefore preparing for the talent, and again, therefore, everybody has to come together, and it's not just about the technical training, but the application training, which is useful. And consumer interface is clearly a strong, whether it's consumer interface to marketing or customer services and so on. And therefore, it's a good area for all the startups to look at and provide their solution. So with that, thank you, everyone.
Good morning, everyone, and
thanks for the opportunity, Sashi and others and Alok for inviting me to this Saturday morning AI for India Summit. The first thing when I looked at the agenda, I called Sashi and I asked, he said AI diffusion. That's what it was called. And obviously being a nerd, I was asking him, they're going to talk about stable diffusion and how to use, Gaussian noise to kind of get text and use text and generate image. And he said, no, it's diffusion. It's all English. It's about how to bring AI everywhere. I'm not kidding. It's really what I asked him. And, obviously the first thing that I want to start off by saying, it's liberating and extremely humbling to be an alternate in the industry, coming from Intel. But that said, a lot of the talk this morning really set it up really well for me to be able to share some thoughts in terms of taking AI everywhere to everyone. And I really like the fact that we heard about personas, what's really the value. And more importantly, sometimes when we start to dwell on technologies or state-of-the-art terms, we tend to forget the fabric of our country, the fundamentals of India, what it's about. And I think it got really synthesized very well when Sunil finally brought it up in the last session. And he said it's about value. It's about cost. It's about what you can eke out of whatever we give to our population. And so a lot of my first few minutes that I have, I'm going to dwell more about population scale and inferencing, which is maybe a slightly different mindset from frontier models and large language models and training, which is still is very important. One of the key things when I talk about fabric of India that I want to put out here is, for any average one of us Indians who are here, if you were to go buy an automobile, be it a two-wheeler or a car, average person, what's the first question they ask? What's the mileage? They don't ask about how many airbags do I have, or can I do autonomous driving? Can I do self-driving parking? Things like that. What's the mileage? And what can it do for my livelihood? It's not a recreational stuff. It's not about me driving to a vacation every other month and doing things. So I want us to keep that in mind when we're talking about bringing AI to everyone. Obviously, India first and beyond. But if we can crack India, we don't need to go beyond. Literally, right? And I think there's always been this narrative that's talked about, hey, AI has happened in the last decade and we were ready and we are in there. But honestly, I think the professor talked about it in the first session, both Krishnan and Ganesh. This has been there for a while. And in fact, even the welcome note reminded us about, hey, this is not about, I entered my grad school in 91, Carnegie Mellon, and I was asking, what do I do? And it was really reflecting back. That's what I want to say. Back in the 80s, there was machine learning, there was data analytics. And, early 2000, we were talking about, NLP and computer vision. And a lot of this is an evolution. It's not magically dawned on us on Gen AI. And it's important to keep that in mind, that evolution really has a lot of importance in terms of what technology maturity means. And I also heard the BL chairman talk about maturity model. Meaning overnight, you can't just push a technology and take it population scale and expect it to work right off the bat, right? It needs to be able to be reliable. You should be able to do these things. And some of these things, like the popular thing goes, right? You can do whatever you want. It takes 9 months to deliver a baby. So you can do whatever you want magically with technology, but for it to mature, it needs to have certain runway. So we need to keep that in mind. And of course, I don't want to talk about the economics, but the AI industry has a significant boom in front of us. And it's not just Gen AI. It's fundamental data-driven analytics, machine learning, analyzing it, analytics. That's the bedrock. That's the bottom of it. If you can't do that, then Gen AI becomes a little bit more of trying to cross the bridge without doing the fundamentals. So the market, when we look at it, we should certainly give the perspective of it's both the basic AI machine learning stuff, and then you augment that with Gen AI. And of course, Gen AI is opening up things beyond anybody's dream. and guaranteed it won't solve Bangalore traffic. You can be rest assured. It will generate traffic, it won't generate AI. Which is still good for us. Generating data for us is good. So nevertheless, there's a ton of verticals. And we can sit here and take one at a time and go through and pour through all of these verticals. And I'm sure folks here are working on many of these areas. There are a few of my own favorites that I will spend some time on and hopefully trigger some, thoughts and have somebody reach out to Intel and we'll work together on these areas. Clearly, every area you look at, there is a tremendous amount of depth in these verticals for what you can start to do with AI and generative AI. Lots of usages. But I don't want to forget the fact that as a technology company and a semiconductor company, I was actually pretty impressed when the BL chairman talked about AI in the resume. And I want to see that, and we are biased to hiring a person. At Intel, we actually like resumes when people say, not I know AI. We like people who can come and tell us, I don't know what to do with AI. Because that's when value really comes in. And the reason I say that is we are also trying to dog food AI within our own engineering. One of the complex engineering fields, like any other engineering field, everyone will say their engineering field is complex, but semiconductor engineering is pretty complex. It's an intersection of many, many domains: electrical, thermal, material science, computer architecture, computer science, data, whole bunch of things. But if the semiconductor industry can use AI, agentic AI, and AI in its own workflow, then we've also cracked a pretty complex use case in itself. So some of those things that we're doing here in Bangalore. So if you're interested, you can certainly, reach out to me on how AI is being used in semiconductor engineering. The reason I brought that up is it's important when you're building a technology to also know what the value of that is, in addition to these verticals, to be able to use them as a way to kind of mature the technology so that it's available for these verticals. And no better place than using it in semiconductor engineering as well. When it comes to India, so I'm going to pivot a little bit. So I've kind of boiled this down into 4 big areas. We have lots of those verticals that I showed, but I want to zone in on where India can leapfrog. When I say leapfrog, I biased myself to those verticals that's fraught with lack of technology, or where technology has really not done the breakthrough that it's ought to do at population scale. So that's where the leapfrog part is. The second thing is reach. Still AI is tier 1 urbanized populations buzzword. We heard HDFC banking expert talk about, at the end of the day, if somebody wants to open an account, they want to talk in simple Hindi, say, how can I open an account and things like that, right? So reach beyond the tier 1 cities. Cost. We are a country that knows how to use the toothpaste to the maximum extent, right? Frugality is in our genes, and we need to use that as a way to show the world how we can do frugal AI better. I keep talking to Professor Kamakoti all the time. This is a discussion he and I have all the time. Let's get frugal AI out there, and what proposals can we do? So that's another one. Innovation's a buzzword, but I think if you can innovate at population scale, then it's magical. So those are the things that I think will allow us to get to scalable, sustainable, cost-sensitive solution. Very important. AI is just a vehicle, but if you can't crack this, it's not going into India and it's not going any beyond. So that's important. And so with that in mind, I kind of put a few of those. One of those that's favorite for me as leapfrog is agriculture. It's a space that's fraught with lack of technology in our country. There are ways we can do it. I want to look at Professor Ganesh and say, I would love to work with problem statements with IITs to go solve this. We're doing this in the US. I'd love to do this in every farm in our country here. And there are ways to do it. And pictures that I've shown this is real solution where Xeons are on tractors, where precision drones are picking up actually plants to do actual places where you can put the pesticide and not spray and pray, and how you can use AIPC to do this and bringing all the solution together. So it's not some random AI generated images. These are things that we have done, but pains that I can't do it in a farm here more at scale. Education, I think we'll talk a little bit more, and thanks to Sashi and we have Parag here. we are going to get direct to mobile in a laptop, which means if a student wants to learn, they can tune into a TV channel on the laptop and be able to learn without distraction. Imagine no internet, no YouTube. Probably one of the best ways to have undistracted, curated learning. If this can be streamed, and this is on a band that's available for a terrestrial to stream education, and we have it. And thanks to Sashi and Parag, we were able to do this, and we showed this in waves. We're trying to now proliferate more where laptops can have integrated TV tuners. So again, big opportunity in education. Again, education is lots of startups, and I think POC to production. We've seen lots of companies doing content, but there is a focus that needs where AI can be good for teachers and AI can be good for students. There are two different problem statements. And if you've seen the latest video that Andre Karpathy had like last week on this, he's talking about content and what content really means in education for teachers is very different from students. I think we need to think about those. Last one's healthcare, and there's enough technology in healthcare. We have the most sophisticated equipment, diagnostic treatment in every hospital, in every city in India. But I don't think it's serving the 1.4 billion population. What can we do here? And I think we talked about, one of the gentlemen talked about certified doctors, that if this gets certified, then it's really as good as you met the doctor. So there are some really good opportunities here, and we're doing some stuff, as Intel this is talking about diabetic retinopathy. I think it's a popular problem statement for AI and for companies to go work with, and India has got a lot of data on this. So small plug, like I said, it's extremely humbling and liberating for being an alternate as a company in this space, but we know what we are doing here. Intel's been there for multiple decades. We've matured technologies that we have taken to several billion people in over several years. So when it comes to AI and taking AI everywhere, we're not the Ferrari that runs in the Bangalore road. We've got cars of every size and automotive of every size, be it at the edge, be it at the client, at the PC level, be it at the data center and for AI. And we'd love to build the Ferraris too, but there are spaces there and we'll get there. But I don't think there are Ferraris that's needed for everything. So it's not a one size fit all. So I just want to leave with that, saying that we do have those products, but it's important in this session as a summit for us to look at what's scalable processing. What does AI software mean when it comes to being open? How we can reduce the total cost of ownership. Three big things: agentic AI. India loves to throw people and human resources because of our services mindset to solve problem. It's not going to pan out in the next decade. We got to learn to become developing our engineers to have exoskeleton. Like I walk in to do my job, I should have 3 assistants and agents that I walk in with. That's my own engineering assistant. And that's what agentic AI is all about. Inferencing, of course, we talked about it, domain-specific models, small language models. Those are the big ones. And when it comes to ecosystem, I think India is probably the best place to do any technology. We are working with startups. My favorite areas are education and enterprise, because this is where a lot of the technology can really get matured, because it's a very brutal environment in both these places. They're extremes. It's very unforgiving and very demanding. So we're working with startups on these spaces. ISVs, we got lots of companies here building software. We're working with them. We have programs at Intel where we are specifically zoning on AI-driven usages. We talked about personas, what it means, ranging from insurance and legal to gamers and others. Intel's a big proponent of Make in India and ODMs. We're not sitting here and saying we'll build a fab here, but beyond the fab, which is at the pinnacle of semiconductor industry, there is a huge pyramid. You need components, you need device manufacturers, ranging from just simple PCBs to resistors and capacitors and cables and even chassis material. We know how to build automotive and phones, but we can't build a full PC here. We can, but we just need to work with the ODMs and component manufacturers. We're doing a lot of stuff there. We're working with government, both the India Semiconductor Mission as well as Indic LLMs and things like that. With respect to talent, we don't talk much about it. We have programs where we have actually, with the last 3-4 years, taken several million K-12 students through AI program to the point where they've taken in 10th grade public schools. I'm not talking about the elitist schools, the international schools. I'm talking about just run-of-the-mill government public schools that we are teaching AI education. We've gone through more than 5 million. In fact, beginning of this year, we started an AI and entrepreneurship program. Our goal was to get to 1 lakh by the end of the year. We crossed the 1 lakh students who have actually registered and gone through it. And now Atal Tinkering Lab, AIM, they've launched the AI Tinkerpreneur last month with Intel, where students are actually learning AI as well as entrepreneurship together. So there's a lot of things that we're doing in terms of just taking AI, just not with the technology, but in terms of engaging with government, engaging with the startups and ecosystem, driving some of these programs with the manufacturing industry. I think this is a great time to be working on in AI, and I think taking AI in India everywhere. If we don't do it as a group here, as a summit here, it's a shame. And I hope we stand here next year talking about great success stories. And thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you all, and thank you, madam. I think you brought diversity finally to this event. Otherwise, we just had men speaking all morning. So, in fact, the anecdote that Gokul mentioned about AI diffusion, I think, was a real question to almost everyone. That what did you mean by diffusion? I think we just meant the simple English meaning that how do we take it to the masses? All morning we've largely heard about AI on the cloud, with massive GPUs, thousands, 100,000s, training models, inference, and so on. But then there was also this tangential way in which India has done innovation, right? If you look at Aadhaar, look at UPI, look at our mobile phone penetration, a lot of our population scale solutions have taken a different path where we have looked at technology in the hands of the people, hands of the masses, be it mobile phones, be it laptops, be it, various solutions where we've been able to go to the people where they are. So one important aspect of diffusion that I would want to bring in is how do we take AI to the edge? If you look at where the US is, where China is, with what they've done with generative AI, with large language models, it's been about massive computing infrastructure. Can we find alternate paths to catch up and perhaps even leapfrog? And so the idea here is, can we think of innovations at the edge that can help India really jumpstart? So I'll start with Parag. Not many of you may know Parag was formerly CEO Sankhya Labs, now with Tejas Networks. Perhaps his unique distinction is when they were at Sankhya Labs, they were on the first to design a chip in India, perhaps one of India's first designed in India chips in the mobile broadcast space. So I'll start with Parag. What do you think it will take to get AI to the edge in India?
I think it's just before you go there, right? I think a little bit of the history part that Gokul spoke about. I think this whole each generation has its fetish for AI. This is not very new. 100 years back, David Hilbert, actually one of the greatest mathematicians, thought that in 10 years, in about 1915, you would have an algorithm generating algorithms, or proving algorithms. Right? So then that's where the famous, the Moudgil's undecidability theorem came in, and which proved that practically, any formal system cannot think. So I don't know, every 50 years we have this thing coming up. So it's not really 20 years old, it's actually more than 100 years old. And the math behind it is about 300 years old. Yeah, coming back to the question, Shashi, firstly, the applications, right? So right now, most of the applications are, I think, a little voyeuristic in some sense, right, for the large language models. There is stuff that is there. I mean, for guys at scale, I think there's been a lot of talk about, cost and power efficiency. So those are the two key things. So the applications are the first things that will take us to the edge. And then along with the application, you also have, you need to have at population scale, Gokul mentioned in his keynote speech, you need to have hardware and corresponding AI ops or AI infrastructure software that is reasonably cheap in terms of very small hardware. Those are the two necessary ingredients in this. And then also if you look at the entire AI ecosystem, there are 4 attack vectors, and there's excessive focus on the 2, which is rightly so. So that's where a lot of monetization happens. So it's an inverted, it's like a food pyramid, a typical food pyramid. You have got diversity of models. I think you have got thousands or millions, if not millions of models, and then you've got each stream generating its own data. So there's a lot of diversity there. There's very little diversity on the on the hardware side and the AI DevOps side. A lot of what people don't understand or don't appreciate, I would rather not understand, it's the wrong word, is that NVIDIA spent more money on CUDA than probably on the right. So it's about $10 billion. So that's the motive. So there are systems. There are, in fact, at Samkhya we built an equivalent of that for our radio access networks and signal processing. We call it the RAM hypervisor. There are frameworks called the MLIR, machine language intermediate representation, that generally helps you, that helps you actually port these models on a different AI, different AI hardware. So the last one is, the hardware itself, or the chip itself, right? The SoC itself. There are very few. There are many people are trying to get in. A lot of us can get into that only if there's this particular layer, the AI DevOps layer or the infrastructure layer, as I call it, is actually open sourced. There are attempts at it. And I think in India, we are not focusing on those 2 aspects, the bottom 2 aspects. Probably we should focus a little bit more on that, because that's where a lot of innovation is going to happen.
Thanks, Parag. So, Gokul, you've been working with these guys and trying to blend D2M and at the edge with your laptop architecture. What do you see are the potential challenges, especially from the hardware ecosystem standpoint, in scaling this and taking it across India?
I think the first one is just the looking at the data, knowing that we have more than 300 million students in India, and it's shocking that we don't sell more than 10 or 15 million laptops in a country like India. So we need to go look at that and see why and what's the value. We do sell a lot of laptops, but that's like the householder who's probably an IT employee or working for a company that's got one. Phones and tablets are fantastic devices, don't get me wrong, but they're very consumption driven, and they're not, when you want to do something meaningful and focused, we've always seen that we open the laptop and we just start doing it. More than just putting the D2M tuner into the laptop, we need to figure out what value will it bring to the students. Taking student as only the person. I know there is also other values, like you can bring OTT content and things like that in a non-network congested band, like the terrestrial band for transmission, versus using our mobile network. So I won't go there. But in just an education, if you want to think of content that can be curated, where good old DVR like things can happen for students, where they can record, where you could have usages where the teacher is in the laptop based on the content, is personalizing and having periodical interaction with the student, literally popping up and teaching based on the content that they watched, having very personalized tests, quizzes, concept unpacking, things like that would be good. And I think we'll have to get into what additional value D2M can bring into a laptop from an education standpoint. And the other big thing is just policy. We need to make sure that we have policies that will make sure that such a requirement is needed in a device, so that you can push the content to students. Because today there is a tremendous amount of fear amongst parents when you give a device to a student. I'm talking about students who are, K-12 and below, meaning they're all eternal learners. So it's not like our parents are watching. It's more like for them, they're worried what is happening behind the screen. And that's something that if we can find a way, and this is one a way of actually taking that fear away and giving the possibility of learning more for the students.
So we looked at mobile phones, laptops, but I think it goes to one of your slides where you had the drone and the agricultural robot. So we have two experts, Professor Suresh and Dr. Trivedi. And so my question to both of you, if we can start with Madam, is, how are you looking at, taking AI to these classes of devices, be it drones, be it robotics, both from an India standpoint, the challenges that you're facing, and what is the potential? So that, because these are applications that can potentially have mass impact, right? Especially agriculture. So if you could, speak to that, what, especially from your experience working with drones and so on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. So, drone is a big enabler in the sense of especially agriculture, but then also lots of other usages. One thing which is going to be very, very essential when it comes to drone is the power consumption, electrical power consumption, because the moment you put, right now there's a huge concern keeping an NVIDIA device on small drones because it requires so much of power, so you have to have that much of heavy battery, and then it brings down the endurance significantly of the drone. So any drone which is giving me today 30-minute endurance, the moment I put a heavy AI there, it's like 15 minutes at max. That issue has to be addressed, and in addition, drones themselves need to be made much more reliable. So, coming to especially the drone sector, there are multiple challenges. I am restricting to the AI part right now, and the data link issue, because we don't want to transmit a lot of video that again brings down the endurance. So edge processing is what is required. Now there are people making edge accelerators. Right now it's limited pretty much to vision. But even in the agriculture sector, soon it's going to come up that you have other sensors other than vision, which can also give you a feel. I mean, why not an artificial nose there, which can also smell the crop and then make like it can see whether it's healthy or getting rotten or something. The AI accelerators, as well as there are lots of other innovation happening, which is primarily limited to vision or nowadays, let's say, LLMs. But then there is a lot of other sensors out there, which either we need to convert them, the data has to be converted to one of the modalities and processed for a faster processing. So that is one thing which I do feel that hardware level innovation, as the fellow panelists also told, is going to be very essential. And the other related challenge also is, so I want to talk about it. Although your question was not related to that, but coming to the education part, I think we need to make AI support systems as well in education. So there are enough students today who can talk about how much deep, I do not know, but they can talk about TensorFlows and YOLOs and all of that. But they do not understand the importance of studying the data, that how to analyze the data to see which model is the best fit, how you can make best out of it, how you can explain. Even explainability right now, whatever limited is limited to vision. But if the model is not working well, how to debug it is not being taught anywhere. So there are lots of these support systems which also should be part of the education. If the last person who's sitting there has to make a good model out of it and then put it into the usage. I think this is what I say right now.
Great. So, Professor Suresh, if you could speak to your experience of robotics, and also you've been looking at how AI diffusion can happen within the research community. So if you can tie both these aspects and speak to it.
Yeah, thank you, Shashi, for having me here. Like Gokul said, and she also mentioned that I would like to focus on the AI diffusion word first. I think like many things we follow from what we observe elsewhere, even sometimes vocabulary also we take. See, diffusion, he said it has a Nedic view of diffusion. I would extend it further to say that See, diffusion, if you look at fixed law of diffusion, many of you have science and technology background. Whenever there is a concentration gradient, diffusion is inevitable. We don't have to do anything. Constant gradient always exists. Somewhere there is wealth and then there is poverty, diffusion takes place. So, but I think we should actually think about perfusion here, not diffusion. Even if we talk about diffusion, we should enhance the diffusion coefficient here, how to do it. But I think if we really think AI is the new blood for our society, we should think about perfusion, like, blood circulation, there is a heart pumping. I think that conscious effort is what we should be thinking about, not just diffusion. I would say AI perfusion. But anyway, talked about robotics. So in IAC, in general, in academics, there are professors here. We don't have to, like I said, AI diffusion is inevitable. Students are already using, as we heard from IMI professor also, now but then actually, how do we use it in actually research is what we are actually thinking about. So one is that we have to become developers beyond becoming users, but beyond information retrieval, content generation, and coding generation, all that students are already doing we don't have to tell them. It naturally happens, right? So how do we actually use it in research is what we are wondering. And coming to just robotics itself, we have several faculty, not just computer science and data science, but also mainstream engineering departments, but also chemistry, biology, physics people are also thinking about using AI in research. If I think about robotics, we can think about work in three ways. There is physical work, there is digital work, and there is cognitive work. I think physical work, I think we have kind of mastered in terms of automation. The robots have played a big role in several decades. Now, recent is autonomous, right? That's the digital work. How do you have sensing, analyzing, and decision making, inferencing? That is done. Next thing is actually cognition. So cognition, I would say it's not just sensing or analyzing or inferencing, but it's something beyond even intuition, just like humans do. I think when we go to that, I think let's say I'll take healthcare within that elderly care. If there is an elderly person sitting there who is not so mobile, wants to go to washroom, just the intent of trying to get up should make a robot sitting there to sense that or get that cognition and do this, or anything that they want, like a real caretaker is there, whatever human caretaker would do, robot should be able to do that kind of cognition. That brings me to think about education in a sense. I think we don't have cognitive science at the bachelor's level yet, but we see already that some countries in the US and Europe, they have bachelor of cognitive science. When we say cognitive science, it has traditionally psychology, anthropology, linguistics, and neuroscience. But then we can also add AI to it, because that's when I think it will get more enriched. So I would say in this physical, digital, and cognitive work, if we focus, then it will be there. For example, in research, we have been thinking, how do we do kind of discovery? How do we do this? Even the fixed law of diffusion, I've been asking my computer science colleagues, if we give all the data that we know about heat conduction, can it actually generate Fourier law? That is discovery, because what we see when papers are being published and a lot of people be discussed, is there discovery coming out of AI? It's always something that we already know, and we are trying to say, yeah, it generates, but it can actually do the discovery. That's what I think would be really nice for us to take it to the next level in terms of research, whether it's robotics or manufacturing. Or I think one thing we are forgetting, I think it was not there in the list also, is entertainment. That also is happening, and that's where a lot of money is also there. Can we get that also?
Very interesting insights. And one of in fact, when you mentioned the law of diffusion, it just reminded me chemical engineering days that Jay and I were transport phenomena. So so whatever is the word, whether it's perfusion or diffusion, I think the key thing is from an India standpoint to take this at population scale. I think there are several barriers. And Shashikiran, you at Wadhwani Foundation, you've been working very closely with various government verticals, also in the social sector, skilling and education and so on. What is your perspective in terms of how do we take AI to the masses? Is it through cell phones? Is it through laptops? Is it through specialized applications like robotics or agriculture and so on? What are you seeing? What is your perspective?
Yeah. So when we at Valvani Foundation, when we are in the what we do is we help create jobs, right? Through entrepreneurs, to helping single entrepreneurs build scalable companies, and also for skilling, where we can give tier 2, tier 3 cities students where they can get skilled and earn a life sustaining wages. So we see all the traffic coming from mobile phone now for various reasons. And here, when we talk about diffusion, like how we are helping these people, right? For example, if you take the entrepreneurship, for example, Sam Altman, recently told a year back, we can see a single person $1 billion companies, right? So when we do that, it's basically they are going to be assisted by AI agents and all those kind of stuff. So here, for example, one of the things we are building for entrepreneurs, because especially from the tier 2, tier 3 cities where they don't have access to all the resources or the knowledge or the level of the knowledge which an IIT graduate might have, a co-founder. For example, if I'm coming from a sales background, or if I'm strong in sales or marketing, I need tech, right? I need to know how to raise capital. Now, all these usually in a traditional system, other co-founders, you have a 2-member, 3-member, 4-member co-founders, and you bring that. But for us to scale entrepreneurship, we can't always have group of people. Actually, it's very, very difficult. There are incubators who are run only to find co-founders. And even after 3 months of lot of high touch, I have seen people are not able to find another co-founder because various issues. I think this is where with AI, we can really scale entrepreneurship, where, for example, if I, as a founder, as a first-time founder or a very young founder or an experienced professional becoming a founder, if I can bring an AI co-founder, that's going to make my life a lot easier. It is going to give a lot of confidence. So that is one product that we are working on, where we support entrepreneurs, where through that journey, we are now supporting 1,000 ventures already, and around 80,000 budding entrepreneurs are associated with our programs. Now, one of the things I saw in this panel was, a lot of emphasis, especially Gokul in his talk also, a lot of emphasis on AI for education. Now, when I tell AI for education, it's not only for studying, we can actually take that up to skilling part. Now, what is the idea of education, right? To finally get into a job or to create a job. Now, here, one of the things that we are really using AI is, for example, role-specific training. And this is where we are using AI a lot. For example, let's assume I take a simple soft skills course on effective communication. For a software engineer, the way he has to use effective communication is totally different. For a software engineer, it is more internal. How do you work with, or you interact with 1 or 2 clients, enterprise clients. But for a tourist guide, for him, the effective communication is totally different. He has to know multiple languages probably. He has to work with different countries, people coming, if he is coming to Hampi or somewhere like that. So now roles for the same course, how is it getting used by a person who is going to different roles? I think that is one thing that we have been able to help by changing the course content, or by helping understand the course content from the role that a person is coming to get skilled for, right? So these are some of the ways that we are using the content. We are doing many more things, but probably these are the things I thought we'll do that. To come to the last part of the question, it is mostly mobile driven. And this is where, yeah, you're right. This is where for us to deliver AI inferences at the edge, we need some standardization, because all these mobile phone come with different hardwares, different CPU processing, different architectures altogether. For us to effectively do that, like how we have protocols for data transmission and many other things, if we are able to get some protocols or standardization, I think that will help us to deliver it on edge much effectively.
So, Parag, one of the big challenges, especially in taking either education or skilling to a large part of the population today, is that in India you have probably 200 to 300 million feature phone users. People who don't have, the touch screen, they don't have the smarts, they probably don't even have 4G data, they probably are on 2G and so on. I know you've been, trying to solve this problem. If we have to get benefits of AI to that segment, what is the way forward? What are you looking at?
I think first, like I said, some of the applications that they use, voice enabled stuff and things like that, and then the cost. When we got into we are the 1% of the population, so a lot of times we don't know, don't know the other side of it. And we're sitting in a highly tough. There are about, there are 3 segments even in the feature phone. Right? The lowest feature phone sells at about 800 rupees. Now, That is at retail. So which means it costs about 400 or 500 to make. So if you have to bring AI there, so you can't add more than 20 rupees to that, right, or 30 rupees. So how do you do that, right? And then there's a middle level feature phone, which costs about 1800 rupees. Which is then again at retail, so 1000 rupees to make. So we have to drastically think architectures, both hardware and software, to be able to cater to this market. And of course, there are applications like we've been discussing, right, on the voice side. Voice enabled. For a lot of people these days on WhatsApp, I see they don't text, they speak. So the phone and the camera and the voice can probably become, or maybe going for even gesture can become, a user interface for the phone or for any device, doesn't matter, any computer device. So doing that at scale, and let's take a step back on how the feature phones reach that price point, right? Because there's this Western model, I call this the leopard versus the hyena model, right? The American and the Western companies, sorry, Gokul, actually are able to, they're like the leopard. They do the kill, but the hyenas come in. They kill, eat as fast as possible and go. There's no way, I think, Western companies today can survive in a sub $10 or sub $5 ASP. ASP is unnecessarily poison in SOC, right? The only country that could do that has done it at scale is China. And the second country that can do is obviously India. We can actually we have the resources, the cost structures, and also the internal market to get there. Now, unfortunately, what's happening is not enough people are concentrating on that market because it's too easy to build internet platforms, internet apps, and make billions there. That's the problem. So we need to have some more thought process, some more people looking at this aspect of, like I said, the aspect of the hardware and or rather rethink the complete AI stack. You need to look at data is available, you need to have a model that can run on this, you need to have hardware that costs, say, about 100 rupees, if not 20 or 100 or 200 rupees, and consumes power. These guys charge their battery. One of the reasons they use feature phones also is also because of power, right? Feature phones last for a week, right? And apparently some of them are willing to, even pay. A lot of these, when we started to talk to the feature phone manufacturers, they told us that some of these are willing to pay 5 rupees a month or 10 rupees a month for skilling. So, that's the business model. How do you get something at that particular price point? And then finally, one thing that's missed out, I think, in the last 20, 25 years, especially in the last 25 years, since GCC came in, that the compiler, there is no monetization on compilers, right? Practically. Nobody even knows what a compiler is today. It's probably the most sophisticated piece of software that runs there. Now, with AI coming in, we have an option to, relook at the compiler research and see how we can build portable models across hardware. That probably to me is going to be the key we have to, invest.
So Gokul, one of the, we spoke about it earlier also in the morning, was that one of the goals of the national education policy is to encourage education in Indian languages. I see that having language models running on laptops at the edge to enable, education across curriculum, various levels being very critical. How far are we away from that? Where do you see the market in terms of being able to achieve that?
Yeah, we're almost there. We actually have, no network just on AI PCs. You can run, Indic language models. So we're there. But the key part is, meaning sometimes we get too ahead of ourselves and say we have a technology and so we'll go search for the solution. I think what's important is to figure out how that can create value for the students. And ideally, you would want, meaning we were working with certain companies where the companies are built because they have literally Bollywood star-like teachers. There is a fan following for a teacher for a specific subject, and students like that teacher's way of teaching. And how can you create that same persona of how they communicate in different languages for different subjects could be one. Then just say I have an Indic model working at this many parameters and this many tokens per second. Having to translate that into real usage model is probably more important as much as the technology being ready. But having said that, to answer your question, we're at that inflection point where these are possible, and we just need to go start enabling them.
So, Professor Anand Suresh, you mentioned AI in research. One of the issues that we see with these generative AI and large language models, especially from a research standpoint, is they hallucinate, they make up citations that don't exist. They're not very reliable and accurate. Now, we have one of the startups later in the afternoon who has a very different approach to knowledge and research, where they've gotten around this problem. How are you seeing it within your research community in terms of usage of generative AI versus the gaps, and how is it percolating down in terms of accelerating research across domains, not just robotics?
Yeah, I think hallucination is a nice word that people have invented for something that is a mistake. But I think, in general, any book or anything that we read, we always take with a grain of salt, right? So, because the authority of the author, when we pick up a book, will have a level of confidence that we place. I think whenever we use any of these AI tools, research, we always practice that. But also there are, I know some efforts going on how to reduce this hallucination. And especially in research, we think of the possibilities of autonomous labs, where even hypotheses can be generated by AI, and then plan experiments and do the inferencing and things like that. People have already shown that efficiency can be increased, but this hallucination always becomes an issue. But I think the people are working. I'm a mechanical engineer, so I don't know the algorithms, but I think that's something that is very important. But then people always know how to interpret what we get as output from any automated system, computer language, software or whatever. I think, but we have to be cautious in terms of using AI tools. Yeah. Also, ethical use, another thing. I think I'm sure some will get discussed as well.
Yeah,
effective and efficient. Yeah.
So, Dr. Trivedi, you mentioned sensors, and so one of the things with especially the sector that you're working in, drones, I think the real world awareness is very important. Sensors play an important role. In AI, maybe India is still catching up. We have not had, but then you have this national quantum mission, and one of the elements of that is quantum sensing. So, what are you looking at in terms of, are there areas where we can, catch up, not only catch up, but get ahead of the rest of the world?
Absolutely. So I think, sensors, as you said, can be divided into vision sensors and nav sensors. So what you're talking about is nav sensors, really, that how can they enable total autonomous operations, cognitive sensing. And I think that will be one very crucial thing, even for the so-called diffusion. Because otherwise you need a very highly specialized operator to operate drone at in a village. And it's not required. I think we should simplify it. And so they say that the best technologies are which become invisible. People don't realize that they're using it. So if somebody can just switch on the drone and it can go do agricultural spray autonomously, avoiding the wires and seeing that where I have taken a detour, so that area is removed. So if it can go to that level of autonomy with all the sensing, vision and acoustics, so collision avoidance is a very, very big challenge right now worldwide for integrating drones into the national airspace or any other usage. So yes, definitely it will happen. At InfoQ, we are working on it. Our main focus is on autonomy and intelligence for navigation, and the inferencing is the second part. So yes, I think that will be very required.
And maybe some of that technology can also solve Bangalore's traffic problems.
Well, we can make aircrafts which can airlift people and deliver them.
So, Shashankaran, if you heard, the different perspectives from a hardware and AI at the edge standpoint, you are trying to solve livelihood issues, right? Skilling, jobs. What is your wish list? What would you like to see happen with AI at the edge in India? to address some of the challenges that you're looking.
Yeah, so I think what we need is, more and more small language models, which can probably run in all these devices, and a guarantee that, these models will run on all these phones, right? Or to at least 80-90% of the phones. So that way we can confidently deliver solutions. For example, network is still a big challenge because we not only operate in India, we operate in 15 different countries south of globe. And when we see the engagement rate usually, drops when people switch from Wi-Fi to 4G, and even 4G is not available anywhere, 4G to 3G, 3G to 2G, because the speed, the access you can do, all those things, become slower and you can't deliver many things, right? So for us to solve that engagement problem, I think we need to deliver AI on the edge because we are relying AI to personalize a lot. I think that's the whole new dimension generative AI is given, where we can personalize the teaching like a one-on-one teacher, which those people could not afford if it was a human being. With Gen AI, we can really deliver one-on-one teaching. For us to solve these problems, I think D2M is a great initiative. I don't know if there is a roadmap to get it to the phones also, right? But once that is there, if you are able to standardize it across the architecture, so that we can confidently tell, like how Android thinks, we can confidently tell, okay, these things will minimum work. The camera, mic will all work in all Android phones. Can we tell these AI models will confidently work at a reasonable performance level? I think if we are able to crack that, I think that's when the usage of AI will go multi-fold within a short span of time.
I think you made a great point. So actually D2M started with the phones. Laptops came later, but I think we'll get there. And in fact, this morning I saw a tweet by Elon Musk saying that for the first time a car delivered itself to the owner. I think it's a significant shift, right? That what was science fiction maybe 2 decades back is now reality. So with the combination of AI at the edge, sensing, and all the autonomous stuff, hopefully we solve these problems. Thanks all of you for joining on this discussion. I think it was a scintillating conversation.
Thank you. I think the last comment was a perfect segue into the next session or the next set of discussions that we are planning to have. And it is about AI for citizens. So the citizen here is the Aam Aadmi, as we would like to call, who is saying that what is in it for me? I mean, all these big companies are talking about AI. They're trying to do all of these things, but what is in it for me? And so with that, I would like to invite our keynote address by Mr. Munish Moudgil from the Indian Administrative Service and the Government of Karnataka. As many of you would know that he's a special commissioner at BBMP and has been I would say the brainchild behind eKhata, which is about getting citizens the registration of their property records. And so I'm hoping he would give us or throw challenges to us that we can try to solve in the coming days, years, months, or decades. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. For once, I'm glad I wore something totally unbureaucratic. And okay, see, I stand here more like a client. There's really nothing I can tell you in your domain of work. And I can absolutely tell you that government is actually a very low-hanging fruit. The level of governance you see in Bangalore should speak that where we are and where we need to go to. And it's, what I would want to share in my keynote, whatever you call it. See, all of you know better than me all the transformation which AI can do. And as I said, government being the low-hanging fruit, from inside the government, we are finding it extremely difficult to engage people, even in Bangalore. The quality of, for example, eKhata software, which we have rolled out, is abysmal. And people are our captive market, or we have a monopoly as the government, and they are suffering. I have been struggling inside even to interface with citizens of Bangalore in terms of them getting a good response when, for example, they want their e-khata. AI has gone to God knows what are levels, but very rudimentary questions are not getting properly answered when you interface with the government in general, and particularly even in BBMP. Everywhere I go, nowadays, people gather around me for the harassment they are facing for example, getting their e-khata. And everybody in that sense, as I said, is my captive client. And I can tell you, we are sincerely trying somehow to be more responsive to the people, but we are not able to come out of that, I don't know, red tape or our structures, etc. So I'll just share a few things. Some of you, Jay told me, some of you are the entrepreneurs naturally working. Many of you, all of you perhaps are working in some way or the other with AI. I want to go away from here by telling you how what I am feeling is not allowing the people and the private, the knowledge which Bangalore has and India has to work along with the government. So, but how do we solve this problem? I have many bad examples. Jay is one of them. So yesterday he sent me a message after 10 years or 7 years, he was able to hand over some data which he had created for use within the government for Bangalore city. He did some LiDAR data for each house in Bangalore, and he was holding on to that data for close to 7 years, or I don't know how many years. And we have been in touch with each other, and it took me 3 to 4 years to get that data to an organization within the government where they can use it. And I don't know what will happen. So I'll try to tell you it's hard actually. How do I get it across? Dealing with government is like dealing with life. So there is no, I mean, if somebody was to ask you, please come and tell how does one deal with life? I mean, what can you tell? Shashi has worked in the government also, so he'll absolutely, and Jay will bear me out. Some of you who think, it's almost like that. And there's another cliche which I would say totally applies to government. Everything I can say about government, the opposite is also true. So, I mean, what works is very hard for me to tell. What does not work, I can tell more easily. Okay. So since I'm trying to make whatever I'm trying to tell you more meaningful for you, what does not work is selling product to the government. And I find most of the private sector mindset is to sell a product or a service. What works, I can tell, with the government is be in relationship with the government. What simpler terms, it means don't think that you'll come, develop a service or a product for 2-3 years, deliver it and go away. It won't work. You have to think that to put it simply, think of working along with the government for, let's say, 10 years or 20 years. Then you can actually work, because the government is that slow. By the time you have started, 2-3 years would be over. And all the people who try to say that in 1 year or 2 years, you may have the best product. Think of it like your grandmother who is in the kitchen and you want to teach her the full cooking range. And the fundamental issue is that you need to stay with your grandmother, okay? You can't just come and say, okay, all these gadgets are there, please start using it. She'll not be able to use it. So what I mean to say is that this mindset that in 2-3 years, start, finish, deliver the product, it will not work. And the benefits are huge. For example, just before me, some speakers spoke about the Bangalore traffic problem, even basically interfacing with the citizens, etc., and so on and so forth. What I mean to say, after this, even if you come to me, even we had some IIT alumni one function, we tried following up. From within the government, we are not able to connect to the people. We remain in silos. The people who can produce great products or solutions, and within the government. So since the time is less, all that I can say is you can come with brilliant ideas and meet me or meet somebody in the government. But please work in terms of long term, along with the government. And one thing which possibly can work much better than anything else, work from within the government than from outside. So you have to step somewhat inside, and government is paranoid, frankly, to hand over its data. There was a scam, the officers can go to jail. And so that's where I say if you work from within the government, the system will be much, much more comfortable sharing a lot of data. The sensitivity of data, I believe you know better than me, etc. So I can just sum up my point that think of it as a relationship to work over next 10 years. Work from within the government than thinking of taking over anything. Somebody was telling and selling me cloud solution across the world. No government is putting their data on the cloud for the simple reason that any great best cloud solution sellers, they have a clause with government of America to share any data at a situation. So, so that's where a lot of things come. So if you come within us, we feel psychologically comfortable. It is a bad setup to work from within the government, but that is only maybe the best option. And rewards are huge. I'm working in the government. You get a lot of satisfaction. The scale is a given thing. Lakhs and millions will get affected by even the smallest of the things. So I don't want to tell what AI can do. I think you guys know better. Our challenge from within the government is how do we interact, interface, connect with the people who can make a huge difference so that what we do from within the government with your help is able to actually impact 100,000 things. I'm not even on the cutting edge. Even the rudimentary things have not been done within the government using AI or using even technology. So the whole scenario options are absolutely open. We will try to find some mechanism of onboarding people. We have been trying, but unsuccessfully, in a more staged manner rather than either you are in or you are out. So if we have that, so there's more meaningful engagement, it happens. I'll just close saying that I was like the head of COVID war room in Bangalore and the state of Karnataka. So all of us know what all happened in COVID. People had all the enthusiasm which I found from the private sector to help during the COVID. You can't have a better situation in that sense where everybody is genuinely wanting to work along. But we found it extremely difficult to work along because again, that whole thing doesn't change that, I'll do hand over this cooking range to my grandmother and she should use it kind of a thing. So absolutely, we need to get into a relationship at different levels rather than just having no contract with the government or a contract with the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moudgil, for that powerful address. We now invite a pioneer who has dedicated his life to advancing inclusion, accessibility, and dignity for all. A true champion of empowerment, he has shown how innovation can break barriers and uplift every citizen. Please welcome Dr. Mahantesh, founder of Samarthanam Foundation, to share his thoughts.
Good afternoon, everybody. Shashi Shekhar sir, all the distinguished friends. I think I'm immensely honored to be here. I'm a non-technical individual, did all my studies in arts and with visual challenge, though I always wanted to be in science, maths and engineering. I loved maths. As a kid, I could tell tables up to 100 when I was 6, 7. Because of my eye problem, I couldn't pursue maths and science after 8th standard. So that was the situation then. But I'm always fascinated by technology, the gadgets, the electronic devices from childhood. Nothing was specially designed for people like me, but I made use of them, customizing to my own needs, like most of you. Starting off with my own tech journey, if I want to kind of talk a little about, as a kid, I was glued to All India Radio then, and I could rotate the button, which could change from station to station, sometimes without understanding the language, English, and especially cricket. So I had the privilege of interacting with Shashi Shekhar sir when he was with Prasar Bharati, when he was a CEO. Because of his involvement, we could get our blind cricket broadcast in Doordarshan. So I picked up cricket commentary interest and learned English without understanding a word, meaning. I could pronounce the words exactly the way commentators were pronouncing. So that is the power of probably innovation and technology. And, looking back 45, 50 years, the way we have traveled, I felt very happy when I heard about DVRs, digital voice recorders, in the earlier panel. So then I started using tape recorders. One, to listen to songs, it was always used in the house. But when I came to school in Bangalore, when I was rejected in a regular school, so after 8th, 9th, I started listening to my lessons in audio cassettes. I don't know how many of you know there used to be audio cassettes. We had to put it in the tape recorder and play, fast forward, backward, rewind. Then double cassette putting tape recorders, I got it from England in 1986. And in 1994, when I did my MA MPhil, wanted to pursue my civil service, like Moudgil sir, I couldn't, because in 93, the provision was made for visually impaired. The provision was not there. And okay, I try my luck. So in 98, 99, I went to England. That's where I saw DVRs in US and England. And prior to that, Walkmans had come. So I'm just giving you how the life has been, how it has changed my own living standards, thinking, the exposure to learn. So then in 99, I got my first mobile. It used to be like wireless. And then the mobile was not communicating. It was not interactive. I could only press the buttons. Good, because I could remember all the numbers. I could dial whoever I wanted. But who called, I had to depend on someone to tell. If I wanted to reject any call, I had no choice. So this kept on, and then in I think 2007-8, Nokia 5110, I think it's an Indian model, I don't know. So that mobile had the advantage of putting talk software. It could speak to you. You can, if you press the button, it will tell you. If there is a call, it will tell you. You could read SMSs. And after some time, people started talking about smartphones, Apple phones, Blackberries. Blackberries I couldn't use. It was not speaking. But smartphones, slowly, we started getting phones. It could communicate with you, it was interactive. So it was very hard for me initially. I was resistant because I was already 40 plus. So I don't know how much I could learn, but no choice. So I started using them with a lot of resistance because I was very comfortable with buttons. I could type comfortably. So, but the Apple phones are so very, very friendly, so very comfortable. I use day in and day out now to send messages, to send WhatsApp messages, even dictate emails. So I think AI has a big, big role to play in the lives of people with disability like me. If AI is made accessible. So I wanted to kind of tell AI for inclusive development. All developers, startups, those who want to innovate, if you develop keeping everybody in mind, it will not only help us, it helps everybody. So anything you develop, be it for health. So like one sad state of affair is how much one thermometer costs. Any idea how much one thermometer, regular thermometer? 100 rupees? How much talking thermometer costs? At least 800, 900, 1,000. Generally, blind people are poor, come from very marginalized section. So we were stressing 8 times more there. So if we can develop all the thermometers talking, those who don't want to listen, they can disable it. I'm just giving a simple example. BP machine. Moudgil sir was talking about COVID. So Samarthanam was very, very proactive during COVID. So we went out and procured a lot of talking devices, BP measuring machines and pulse oximeter. Again, 5-6 times more the cost. So if every device, every product, every software, if it is developed inclusive, keeping everybody in mind, it doesn't cost much. But retrofitting always costs me. So dear friends, on behalf of my entire large disabled population, and anybody can become disabled at any given point of time. You would never know. Could be accident, could be nervous degeneration. So like that. So I request each one of you. And Samarthanam, in our own way, we are very active in many tech innovations. We have a assistive tech accelerator. We encourage people to work on devices for people with disability with three main objectives. We want them to become accessible. All the devices should be accessible, available, and affordable. Cost has to be low. And we talk to a lot of companies. Companies come forward and help us to distribute these devices for people with the different challenges. So this has helped us to make our students inclusive, actively participate, study in primary institutes like IIMs, IITs, and even non-visual impaired, other disabled people with physical challenge. They are doctors, hearing impaired, they can do a lot of other works. So even we use NLPs extensively, and we are also working with one of our friend Karthik, develop AI agent to talk for Samarthanam. So like that we are doing, but still long way to go. So what is our vision? What is my request to all of you is by 2030, if AI can become completely inclusive, all that you develop, it could be in part of education, AI could be employment solution, training could be AI, all training. So everything what you see, what you hear, if everybody can see and understand. See, cochlear implantation is a great innovation. So like that, I read about Elon Musk, who would make through some neural connection, blind people to see. So I see tremendous potentiality, but very, very limited AI is accessible. Less than 4% content is accessible for blind. So like that, a lot of, I don't say discrimination. Definitely we are seeing a better world. It will enhance the quality of life. I don't know whether I exceeded the time. So I would like to extend big thanks to AI4INDIA for organizing this amazing initiative, and Shashi Shekhar sir, having me here to represent my cause, the community which I belong to. So I request each one of you, please remember us when you develop something and make it inclusive, make it available, make it accessible, and make it affordable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mahantesh, for that truly inspiring talk. We now turn to a critical conversation, AI for the people. How can we ensure that this powerful technology meaningfully improves lives across health, education, and governance? To guide this discussion, I invite Dr. Asundi to the stage, who will be taking the discussion forward. Joining him on this panel are Mr. Munish, CTO, eGov Foundation, Mr. Jagdish Babu, COO, CSTEP, Dr. Ramanand, Director, CPRG, Mr. Shiva Subramaniam, CEO, Vadvani AI, Dr. Sarayu Natarajan, Founder, Apti Institute. Let's welcome the panel for what promises to be a rich and engaging discussion.
Wonderful. I think the stage has been set. The technologists have come and told us what they can do for all of us. And then obviously we've got a call from the aspect of citizens. Of course, the idea of inclusivity. I think each of you have done interesting things when it comes to working with citizens. And I think all of the conversations so far have been the supply side. I think it's now time we now start talking about the demand. What is the client feeling? We already had one conversation from government saying, you need to work with us. How do we work with us? So let's start with each of you. So Sarayu, I'll start with you since you're sitting next to me. Is give us a brief on the kind of work that you're doing and what are the typical challenges you're facing with when people ask you the question is, how are you applying AI to what you're doing?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, okay. Thank you for that question. I run Apti Institute, which is a think tank or a consultancy that works at the intersection of technology and society. And most of our work is focused on understanding how technology can be better applied or ways in which questions of inclusion, access, and governance may be thought about. So sometimes AI is a part of the problem, which is questions of inclusion or access or governance of AI arise. Sometimes it's part of the solution, which is that it might dramatically increase access to certain populations. It might dramatically increase efficiencies in service provision. So it's a bit of both for us. And so while there's no straight answer to how do we use AI in our work, what we try to do as an organization is take a critical standpoint in thinking about how AI can be used, and if it is being used, how it can be better used for citizens. So that's our work. And
So any examples that you can throw in on the type of any examples that you can throw in?
Sure. So a lot of our work, like I said, has focused on understanding and deconstructing AI. So a lot of our research work focuses on questions of AI safety, bias in AI, the governance of AI. So the notion of responsibility, which we hear about very often, our work tries to understand how can AI be more responsible. Also, the question of who is responsible for making AI responsible. And in that sense, if it is the people at the front line making technology, how can you think about enhancing their capacities to build better AI? Another part of our work, actually, which does not come up in many discussions around AI, particularly around generative AI, actually focuses on the labor that is involved in making AI. So we think quite deeply about data annotation, data labeling, more broadly questions of skilling around the making of AI. A third category of our work focuses, particularly with the rise of generative AI, on some of the more downstream consequences, such as in the information ecosphere, misinformation, disinformation, etc. But all of this is to say that our interest is in understanding the making of AI, the constraints in India which define the making of AI and the utility of AI, and that's what we do. I hope that was adequate.
Wonderful. So I think the question now, Munish, I think as eGov, working again with government, I think more thinking about it from the perspective of citizens, can you talk about some of the challenges that you face when you're trying to incorporate the same question? That is, how are you incorporating AI into what you're trying to do in the work that you're doing?
Thank you. eGov Foundation is basically a not-for-profit. We've been around since 2003. Was set up by Nandan and Shrikant, who eventually went down and did Aadhaar. A lot of the work, the way we look at it is, of course, from a citizen-centric perspective, working with closely with the government, but also with markets and societal partners like APTI and all, also to look at how do we, firstly, I think the most important form is, while yes, how do you apply tech? A lot of the work that we do is in improving access in public service delivery space. But I think the important thing is to not necessarily look at any technology. I think is not just AI. I think if you are looking at, first thing is how do you frame the problem? From whose perspective are you framing the problem? Are you looking at application of technology to a certain area, or are you looking at what are the problems that the citizen is facing? I think today we still have the roti kapda makan problem, and then bijli sadak pani, which is, I think, being expressed in various phases. And what is this nature of these problems? I think first understanding the problem from that perspective, and then looking at, in sense, some of these are not necessarily technology problems. I think a lot of the problems, like people are talking traffic issues and can technology solve traffic? A lot of these are also policy issues, institutional issues. I think you need to unbundle the problem and look at what can be applied where to solve the problem. Of course, technology, availability of technology helps you reimagine some of the problems. So what we do is typically look at the problem, given the availability of technology, how can you refine some of the problem statements? And then we work with the government to try to see, a lot of the other discussion was pilots. And India is a graveyard of pilots. Right? And so one of the things that we try to do is work with trusted government parties where there's a champion who's willing to drive a change, do one exemplar at scale. Right? And as part of doing the scale, we basically put out a open source solution. What are the policy changes that you needed to do? What are the programmatic things that you needed to do? And then make it available generally in an open knowledge so that others are able to replicate the whole thing. And that's essentially one of the ways we've been trying to drive change and how governments can actually leverage technology
at scale to change basically public service delivery. And I think the same model is what we are trying also with AI. Of course, AI is far more complicated, it's still evolving. So it'll still take a little bit more time to adopt on the public service delivery, but the potential is huge in terms of improving access and some of these things. I'll leave it right now.
Thank you. Dr. Raman, I think the similar question to you, one is of course, what is CPRG focusing on? And what are the aspects related to, citizens that you would be working on when it comes to AI or any, I think I think Manish has opened it up to all digital transformation in society.
Hello. So thank you, Jay, for giving the chance to explain about our work. So as Manish also told, in CPRG, basically we are public policy think tank. So we are more concerned about the citizen aspect and people's aspect. And we have founded one initiative that's called the Future of Society. Under that initiative, we just trying to understand the various aspects of society and how AI, not only AI but other emerging technologies, going to shape up the future of that part. So from that initiative, we have developed some data down initiative with the AI4INDIA, where we were just trying to understand how normal citizen can volunteer some of that data set. So either government system or private organization can use those data sets. And when we were talking about volunteering, we were saying in India we don't have that kind of mechanism where ordinary citizen can volunteer some of the data sets. I will say, as I think Munish was saying, some of companies have approached him for to use cloud system. So in India, acquiring data is not illegal, but that not illegal also, because we don't have that kind of mechanism. How it will be used and what will be the implication of that data sets. So in Future of Society, currently we have just try to map some of the university system, how students are feeling about AI. When students, teacher, and some non-academic staff, we have surveyed them, and we were just trying to understand their idea, their experience about AI and other technological aspects. Similarly, we are also doing some of the research in field of different industry sectors like hospitality, defense, health, and how respective industry, the professionals and stakeholders are responding to the challenges of AI, how they are using AI and unka imagination kya hai. We are just trying to capture those imagination. And in the same manner, as I told, we are basically social organizations. So our idea to understand if they will use certain time in certain period, what will be the impact and what could be maybe उनका behavior कुछ change होगा क्या नहीं होगा, whether अभी जैसा behave हो रहा है वैसा behave 5 साल बाद होगा कि नहीं होगा, and we are in more into it. So ऐसे कुछ हम sector wise analysis कर रहे हैं. Then we are also doing especially some education thing. So we are just trying to understand the educational aspect. जैसे मनीष सर ने एक इंटरेस्टिंग बात कही, मनीष जी ने भी बोली, हमें ऐसा लग रहा है कि it is raining and हम लोग जाएंगे and we will उसको experience कर लेंगे. अगर ऐसा रहेगा तो it will not work and we will become just one of the product of that system. हमें I think हमें उसको कैसे डायरेक्शन देना है, उसका क्या ऑब्जेक्टिव होगा, वो वाले पार्ट पर जितना जल्दी चले जाएंगे उतना ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा. So we are just trying.
Wonderful. I think impact of AI on society is also an important thing, and how citizens will also react to that particular thing. Very informative. Now, Shekhar, I think Vadwani AI has been sort of in the space for a little time now, and there's some very interesting solutions that I have seen coming out of that. Before we get to the solutions, Can you just talk through some of the challenges that you faced as you were developing the solution so that we can be aware of some of those things before we get into the solutions?
Sure, thank you. As an institute, we are a not-for-profit. So our goals are centric on Bharat, which is the individuals who are not urbanized, and we have to deliver the solution to all over India. So some of the points that were spoken about earlier, I will not have enough time to describe each of this, so I'll just speak a few sentences. Behind each sentence is probably a volume of experience, the art, craft, and science of doing AI. We sit in a space between the tech that invents new techniques for AI and academicians who may do research. Think of that as one side of the equation. Think of the marketplace, which is, in our case, essentially the government and the social good marketplace as the second place. Between these two is a void. And the void manifests itself by not solving problems correctly, not focusing on the problem first and focusing on the solution, maybe focusing on profitability and benefits rather than the real benefit to the end user. So the design philosophy of our institute is to start with the marketplace. We were inaugurated by the PM and we've been in business for the last 7 years. For us, the entire ecosystem of problem solving is super critical. What was stated earlier is super important. You should not be in this space if you're not willing to stay for 10 to 15 years. All systems, I've been 40 years in this space. All systems are work in progress. There's no perfect system that you will ever face. So you have to learn how to work in a changing ecosystem of technology where new innovations will come. You have to make design choices that are intelligent and appropriate so that you serve the benefits that you're looking for. You have to reach a cost point that is meaningful for usage. You have a product called Oral Reading Fluency, which assists children to read a paragraph, and the AI tool will tell you if it's an error or not. The cost of inference is 5 paisa. There is no technology in this world that offers an AI solution at 5 paisa. 5 paisa means 1 million students ke liye, the evaluation is 50,000 rupees. We have rolled it across the state of Gujarat and now state of Rajasthan. Very, very happy. We plan to do this pan-India. All our solutions are like that. We have touched 10 crore people using 25 solutions with AI. All of them start with the beginning is super important. Is it an AI problem? Are you addressing bias upfront? Are you doing critical systems design thinking upfront? Do you understand the deployment environment at the time of design? Example, we did a project for Rajasthan where people would claim money because they were wanting to submit an X-ray in order to say that they have lung disease due to silicosis, which is a sand-based disease. If we had gone in without understanding the problem, we would have interpreted an X-ray using AI. But an X-ray costs 100 rupees. A photograph of an X-ray is free. So the problem is you have to interpret the photograph of the X-ray. Another example, we released a solution for cotton farmers, massive solution. It has given a huge impact because of a couple of pests that are there. It's been in solution for about 3-4 years. If we had assumed that, we'll just release it on a smartphone, you would have touched X number of farmers. If you model the problem by saying 1 in 6 or 10 people will have a smartphone, but you have to touch all the 7 farmers. Because of their proximity, because of the fact that they will meet at a chai shop, they will have feature phones, you have to solve the problem differently. So by solving one problem, you get a 7x benefit. All problems in AI are the problem definition, the tech, the design. It's all matter of detail. That's tech work. Leave it aside. You don't need to chase the next excitement in technology in order to solve problems. There's no problem in society that's not larger or more difficult than the technology that tries to solve it. Paying attention to the problem is our key goal. And so we've been able to release all this. We run one of the largest AI enablements in India, in the world, for eSanjeevani, which has 10 crore consultations per year. We provide them a provisional diagnostic using AI. We've got a lot of work to do with that. We are nowhere done. दूर दूर तक काम खत्म नहीं हुआ है. 4 साल लगेगा हमको. 5 saal lagega to get it done. And we have a deployment network now, which has an opportunity to touch 84 crore Indians. That's my target. For me, instead of dollars, it's billions of people. I have to touch 80 to 100 billion people with AI solutions. That's the goal of the institute. So it's always people first, problem first. AI is a dur subservient. It's nothing. It's just technology. I mean, I've seen so many technologies. One more, it'll come and go. No big deal. The problems are the focus points. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Shekhar. Very apt for this particular session. Jagdish, I think I have set you up very nicely now. You can let us know, I mean, through each step, one is the kinds of stuff that you're doing, but also the challenges that you're facing as you play with systems, with government, citizens.
Yeah, so just to introduce the next step, I think we are about 11 years so far, and we were together, I think, before that for 7 years with Aadhaar, the same team. So, in some sense, this question was given to me beforehand, so I'm prepared, right? So in some sense, broadly, we kind of addressing two areas in the last few years, let's say, right? One is, I think, as Manish was talking about, access to information, inclusive access to information itself is one phenomenal area. 1.5 billion people needs to get information in a very contextual manner, which is a continuous challenge. If you see last 2020, 2010 decade, it's all about making information accessible in a very interesting and improved technology-enabled way, which has improved a lot. In some sense, my journey before Aadhaar was at Intel, when we first conceptualized the railway reservation system. Irrespective of how much our challenges there are, I used to think that maybe one day we wouldn't have to stand in a queue to get ticket, but that was far-fetched at that time to think that it would ever come. Only foreigners would book from wherever they are, but we would never be able to do it. That was a criticism in a big way. Today, if you see, I don't know if anybody would go to railway station to book a ticket ever, right? Similarly, today, I think one initiative that we think about inclusion at scale, everybody. Now, therefore, with AI4 Bharat, models that will address for language translation on all language operations. I think in the last 2-3 years, a phenomenal moment has opened up for society in general, which is to say that we are at a time when we can actually make information available to people in their language for their problem in a way that can be managed in a government context. Private context, I think there are many opportunities, but in government context, it's possible. It's just a sitting duck. We got the low-hanging fruit. It is absolutely essential. We do it for every major economic opportunity if it involves people, whether it is farmers, citizens, and so on. So much of the work has been to apply that to citizens. The second area is problem solving. Now, one is accessibility, accessing government information or otherwise any information at scale. Other is problem solving. I think technology provides significant opportunities to solve problems. We are engaged in FLN, like what Vadvani Sir was talking about. The Vadvani Foundation also is doing. With about 19,000 schools in about 6 states, it's problem solving for FLN, where children can get personalized tutoring at FLN only for those FLN needs. Many children can actually learn to read and do basic math, they can exist in the world. And similarly for farmers, again, we've been working very closely with Vadvani AI, with the PM Kisan Mitra, and now Vistar and so on and so forth, which actually recently got launched by Maharashtra. I'm just saying, as Shekhar was saying, it is all beginning. But already we see Kisan Mitra being a very small system that does just one scheme information for 12 crore farmers. Out of the 2 crore farmers don't get their money in time. Out of that 1 crore farmers have benefited from this. It is a very simple system. But that simple thing done at scale, it's about 3-year journey actually, a 2.5-year journey. Whatever, all things. Small language models, I heard somebody talk about small language models over here. Okay. So it's been that. But now with Vistar, with generative AI, I see significant potential. People can actually do significantly better, and we've been at that journey. So from a challenge perspective, especially I talk about only government and large-scale citizen services, procurement is a big challenge with AI, very big challenge. Why? It's like a little bit of a hazy space and things are changing every day. I think we should do well to simplify this, to not scare it with lots and lots of dangers. Like, for example, if you see this room has significant electricity flowing, it's very dangerous if you touch it, right? But we are surviving with it, right? And so make it inclusive and make it procurable easily. Therefore, I see that in next 10 years, we will solve for it. No big deal. Why? Because website was like this only in 2000. Website was like this, e-commerce was like this. So you see, it has been solved for. It's a big opportunity. As Shekhar was saying, it has to be done. But it's just a matter of how we apply it so that significant problems can be past us in this decade.
So, being conscious of the fact that we are between the group and lunch, I'll go the reverse now. I think if I can ask you, sir, that can you, I mean, this is a question that we've been posing to everyone, right? The idea is co-creation. What can we do here? Right? What can we do here now to make sure that the people in the audience, people who are either startups or even let's say industry, how should they engage with you or because you're the person who's helping them with the problem statement. How do we engage with you so that we can get to that future that we.
So I think I'll just vibe with both what Manish is saying and what Shekhar was saying. Some of us are invested in this for our lifetime because the problem also needs that kind of an attention. And it's like growing coconuts, okay? From the time you plant it to from the first fruit is like a 6-7 years if you're looking at old type varieties. Now you cannot fast track it, all right? So similarly, solutions are also of that scale. So one is directly if you are, but also we want both markets to participate in the solutions, like in ONDC, for example, it's like a protocol-driven technology system in those opportunities. And if you are not for profit, then we can actually work together to make your ways available to larger set of people. And so to that extent, in most of the areas, so today we are also working on opportunity matching to job aspirants with AI, right? So in many of these areas, if you can approach us if you have a care, if you have a skill, or if you have a solution, even an idea, like one thing, because much of the time we are all in our silos doing whatever we do, and collaboration is the way to solve for it, right? You know, PM Kisan, E-Mitra, I think 3 organizations sit together to solve for it on a daily basis. And that's how it works. So there is nothing like what you do, what I do. It's a collaborative effort, and that's a way to solve for it. So I think problem is big enough, each one of the problems, and there is so much more to tackle. I kind of say that, therefore, collaboration is the way to go. Take what I have, take my care, and let's do something together big.
Yeah, so so there's I will make an aphorism or a statement. The opportunity for using AI far exceeds the expertise that is available to attend to it. If we accept that statement, then there is a need for an extraordinary amount of people to come together to solve it. However, it's extremely important, like Jagdish says, it's super important that there needs to be alignment, ideological alignment. There should be a need to serve, a need to care for people, a need to learn and communicate, because this is the goal of the ethos of an organizational approach, not one. The entire ecosystem approach has to be like that. And this includes the government. It includes players who are not for profit. So if you want to participate in this space, you should have a much longer term view of how you will be able to make money in this for the profit organizations. For others, you need to have the perseverance and the tenacity to withstand failures, to be patient, and to have the internal strength to ride the problem until you can see the very end.
Thank you. Dr. Ramanji,
what I think, जैसा मैंने अपने फ्यूचर ऑफ सोसाइटी प्रोजेक्ट के बारे में बताया, जैसा what I explained, in our future of society initiative, we are trying to collaborate with everyone who are interested in the field of AI and other emerging technology, and we are, focusing on maybe next 10 to 15 years to understand the impact of these technologies. But I have only one thing which I think बहुत लोगों को दिमाग में होगा. We are more focusing on the people who are not, big technology savvy. Whatever happening in that tech field, usually people say it's a subject of technocrats or tech people who understand technology. AI, what AI have done to this academia and other places. Even you don't know technology, even you don't have that kind of mastery, you can do a lot of things. Because AI has created a lot of leverage to non-tech people. People who have studied humanities and social science, they can also contribute. So what I will suggest people from across the subjects, domain, industry, they should participate and they should understand it is not like that कि आपको नहीं आता कि आप नहीं कर सकते. It is kind of experience based thing. आपका हर kind जितने भी type experience which you have वो सारे important है इस field के लिए. So वो जो hesitation usually हमारे पास थी and because of that we have lost lot of chances और बहुत सारे जो experience लोग हैं बहुत सारे हमारे उन लोग contribute नहीं कर पाए. This is the thing. और ये time है जिसमें हम सब लोग contribute कर सकते हैं. So मुझे लगता है सबको contribute.
Yeah. So I'll just share our experience. Of course, the Liga right now has an open source software for digital. It also runs the National Urban Digital Mission, which is deployed around 2,000 cities in India. One of the lot of market partners, including small companies, are actually building and implementing this with the government. So I think there are models that exist where markets, big companies to small companies, can work, including with partners like us. So, like I was saying, our model has been we take a problem area, we solve that problem area for the government because that's what they are interested in. And once we solve it, we make this available as open source platforms, and then a lot of the market players, etc., take this and actually implement this. So there are these opportunities that are available. We are trying to replicate similarly the models with AI. I'm also part of the AI series for sustainable cities. Similar models we are trying to look for. So if you are working in those areas, please connect. Happy to engage with you and see how we can solve the problem that's here.
Thank you, Manish. I think I'm going to put a different question. Is that, as Apti Institute, I can see the kinds of issues you're working on. How would you like to engage with the ecosystem when it comes to some of the aspects of AI that you are looking at?
Okay, that's a nice question. I have notes for the previous one as well. I think there are a few points that we would like to continue conversations on with industry, with government, with whoever else is interested. The first is around the value system in which technology is built for citizen services or for the citizen, with the citizen in mind. Much of it is typically oriented towards the state, much of it is typically within a framework of public service delivery, rights and obligations come into play, rules and services come into play. So how do you do it? Instead of seeing this as a challenge, to work with it as a boundary condition to bring better things, better and more impactful tech. So that's the first. And we have collaborated with several folks on this kind of thing. The second is, I think, I've heard it from all the panelists and it's been there in the discussions today, is the idea of making with rather than making for. This co-creative process takes a lot of work and if I may say so, pardon my French, is very, very damn irritating. Like it's really, really frustrating because it's like a monkey scaling a greased pole, so you keep going forward and then going back. What we have done over the years is build up knowledge that can either reduce the amount of time that it takes to get to a better stage of knowledge or B, thought really deeply about the process, the ways in which it can be truly representative, truly just, and actually works towards a better outcome. So that's another conversation I would love to have. I think the third part, which is perhaps more personal than any other, is that very often statements are built around the technology we have possible, and as an former academic, you tend to answer the questions your methods allow you to answer. But we must be very, very careful of that in the case of citizen services. So, for example, my view on the traffic problems is everybody's had their two bits. Is that it's not a tech one at all. We probably need better buses than a BRT system. We need to do some research around that. And maybe that's the solution. So, thinking more carefully and around how we define the problems and whether they are tech ones at all is a conversation we have to have. So, yeah, those would be my 3 things.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you all the panelists. I think the earlier comment I used to always have is collaboration is damn hard, very hard. And now we have obviously got a new term called co-creation that we have to deal with. So I think it is something that we'll have to put our efforts into. And thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And thank you, everyone. Look forward to speaking to you outside.